Chapter 1003. The Protector of the Forest, Cenarius. Basically, everyone had forgotten about this large character. Cenarius's individual strength was not weaker than the peak experts of the Forest of Chaos, and the forest power led by Cenarius was a power that could not be ignored in the Forest of Chaos. Only the Treants were few in number and they didn't move for several hundred years, so there was no need to fight for resources. Therefore, they were even more low-key than the elves and were ignored. Now they were dragged in. The entire situation was different. The Treants leaned towards the elves. This was a fact that no one could deny. After all, the Wood Elves and the Treants had a large similarity. They both viewed the ancient Tree of Life as a divine object, and it was the power of the ancient Tree of Life that gave birth to their ancestors and gave them their power. With the Elven King as the leader and the strength of the elves and the Treants, if the two sides fought, their chances of victory would decrease by quite a bit. It was very likely that this would become a long battle. This would drag the entire forest into the swamp of war. If the entire forest fell into the swamp of war, the situation could be predicted. The image the eternal forest had built up over the years would have a decisive effect at this time. Imagine, there are two neighbors. One is a ferocious tiger that often invades others, and the other is an elephant that is equally strong but knows its place and does not expand. When the two neighbors fight, the two neighbors will fight each other. Who would you help? You could guess it even with your feet. If the two sides were in a deadlock and couldn't decide a winner, most of the neutral forest cities and tribes would side with the eternal forest. This would suppress the overall strength of the other three sides. Burst Claw gritted his teeth. Aren't you afraid of the rare Treants going extinct? Every Treant can be sacrificed for the ancient Tree of Life. Cenarius' voice was slow and sluggish, but it was filled with an unshakable determination. If you doubt the Trent's determination, you can give it a try. Cenarius was not joking. Actually, the Treants never joked. The Treants were a very serious race. They didn't have many emotions and were almost inflexible. Not to mention that the relationship between the ancient Tree of Life and the Treants surpassed the Wood Elves. The ancient Tree of Life was the father of the Treants. It was the Trent's god. The atmosphere instantly fell into a deadlock. All right, since the 1,000-year-old Cenarius has appeared, I'll give you face. Deathwing expressed his stance first. I support Miracle City's independence. Since Deathwing said this, how could Burst Claw and Thunder's Fury have any objections? This wasn't because they truly wanted to support Miracle City, it was just a delaying tactic. As long as the ancient Tree of Life wasn't completely controlled by the Eternal Forest, these three powers had nothing to fear. Even if the Treants were strong, they were still limited in numbers. The Wood Elves were the true opponents they had to guard against. Augusta was still not satisfied with this result. In the end, after going around for so long, they still couldn't take back the ancient Tree of Life. Instead, they wanted a small city like Miracle City to become independent. The Elven King Lancelot said before Augusta could, "Since it's like this, the elves will agree." "Your Majesty, this is the best result." The Elven King looked at Augusta. Sir Speaker doesn't want to see the entire Forest of Chaos turn into rivers of blood and people die. Indeed, this was the best result. To the three powers, as long as the ancient Tree of Life didn't fall into the Eternal Forest's hands, there was still room for a buffer. To the elves, although the ancient Tree of Life didn't fall into their hands, with the transport tower, how hard would it be for the elves to come to Miracle City? Not to mention that Cenarius was guarding Miracle City and the Treants were close to the elves. This was an opportunity for the elves. If both sides took a step back, the Forest of Chaos would be safe. If both sides fought, both sides would suffer heavy losses and there would be no winners. The Elven King had to consider many things. He hoped to use Miracle City to reform the elves, so having some connections was not troublesome, rather it was necessary. Good. Thunder's Fury looked at Cenarius. Since it's like this, we'll ask Cenarius to be the judge. I believe the Treants won't go back on their word. Cenarius slowly said in a voice filled with power and determination, with the name of the Forest Protector, the Treants will protect Miracle City's position as a neutral city and support Miracle City's City Lord Chu Tion's ruling position. Whether it is the elves, dragons, titans, behemoths, or any other race in the forest, if they try to take Miracle City for themselves or use any methods to directly or indirectly control the ancient Tree of Life or Miracle City, they will be viewed as the Trent's enemies. The Trey Ants wouldn't go back on their word. Not to mention a person like Cenarius. This kind of promise was more effective than any contract. At least it could ensure that Miracle City wouldn't fall into the elves' hands. Because everything happened so suddenly, no one was prepared, so this was the best solution. Lancelot, I hope you can keep your word. Goodbye. Death Wing, Burst Claw, and Thunder's Fury quickly left Miracle City. They knew that they weren't prepared enough, so making a promise now was just a delaying tactic. As for how to deal with Miracle City and the ancient Tree of Life, they had to think about it in the long run. The elven counselors all had dark faces. The Miracle City people all had strange expressions. In the end, the 4 giants didn't gain any benefits at all, and it was the weak Miracle City that gained the benefits. This change was too much for them to handle. Damn. Finally, Augusta could only pinch his nose and throw it away. We're returning to the Eternal Forest for the meeting. Other than the Elven King father and daughter, the other elves all left Miracle City. Ha ha, it really was dangerous. Chu Tian cupped his hands at Cenarius, not feeling the joy of surviving a disaster at all. Rather, he had a mischievous smile as he said, "It's a good thing you appeared in time, otherwise Father's City Lord position wouldn't be stable. You bringing the ancient Tree of Life to the world is a historic feat." Cenarius spoke very slowly, but it was able to reach the heart, giving people a peaceful feeling. The Trey Ants will protect the growth of the ancient tree and will also protect the rights you have. Meng Qingwu still didn't believe her own guess. Respected Forest Protector, may I ask how much power the Trey Ants will send to protect Miracle City? All of them. All of them? The Trey Ants will only follow the promise and will not accept Miracle City's orders. Although Miracle City couldn't directly order the Trey Ants, in the mountains around Miracle City, if there were tens of thousands of Trey Ants stationed, how strong would Miracle City's defenses be? Would this kind of Miracle City still need to worry about being attacked? Unless one of the 4 great powers came to attack, the matter of being attacked into the city would never happen again. Young Miss, Yinging, what are you standing there for? Chu Tian called out. Why aren't you helping our respected Trey Ant friend settle down? Cenarius was the strongest Trey Ant. Of course he was placed in the Miracle Gardens. Not only could he protect the ancient Tree of Life, he also didn't need to worry about the treasures in the gardens being destroyed. As for the other Trey Ants, they were placed in and around Miracle City, especially in the surrounding mountain forest. The Trey Ants could not move for several decades or even 100 years. It was these fellows that didn't move that became Miracle City's strongest protective umbrella. Adding in Miracle City's life detection radar, no matter if the enemy was in the sky, on the ground, or underground, they couldn't hide and were instantly killed. The Elven King brought Vivian in front of Miracle City. There won't be any power in the Forest of Chaos that can easily shake your position as City Lord. You can rest easy now. You praise me too much, you praise me too much. I'm just trying to make a living. Royal Father. Vivian looked at the Elven King. You should do it now. What are you in a rush for? The Elven King helplessly shook his head before saying to Chu Tian, Vivian has told me that Miracle City's bank can provide a deposit service. Moreover, the longer the deposit, the higher the interest rate. Vivian quickly added, the elves have quite a few idle source stones, so rather than leaving them in the forest, it's better to store them in Miracle Bank to earn some interest. Although my royal father can't avoid that bad-tempered speaker, it isn't a problem to make some money. Chu Tian instantly understood Vivian's intention. This girl was planning on helping Miracle City solve their financial problems. Not bad, not bad. How much do you want to deposit? Chu Tian added, the Elven King is personally depositing it, so naturally I will give you the highest interest rate. I guarantee you won't suffer a loss. First deposit 150,000 source stones. Vivian made the decision for her father, deposit it for a year. Chu Tian's eyes lit up. This was a fucking large business. Miracle City's finances were close to collapsing, so 100,000 source stones could be considered a timely rain that could solve this urgent problem. After a year, there will be 50% interest. Chu Tian looked at the Elven King and said, Miracle City's current economic situation isn't good, this is already the limit. A year of 50% interest? The Elven King never thought that Miracle Bank's interest would be this high. Wouldn't 150,000 become 225,000 after a year? The wealth of the outstanding merchants of the continent was only like this. The Elven King didn't do anything at all, he just moved the source stones to another place. Money isn't a problem and interest isn't a problem. The Elven King revealed a deep smile. I can even put it in the bank without interest. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Chu Tian saw Vivian's surprised expression and he immediately asked in a vigilant voice, What do you want to do? Don't be nervous. The Elven King shook his head and said, I just want to buy a smart brain, that's all. Smart brains knew everything. This fellow knew quite a bit about Miracle City. Chu Tian thought that Miracle Commerce already had 4-5 smart brains, so it wouldn't affect Miracle City too much even if they sold one. Now that there were over 100,000 source stones in the account, he had to give the Elven King face. All right, I agree. The Trey Ants were personally protecting the city and there was a large amount of money coming in from the Elven King. Good news kept coming in. The city's crisis and the financial crisis were solved at the same time. Chapter 1004. The Great Zhou's number 1 sect's vice sect master Ling Ying was in the 4th true spirit layer. He was only a bit weaker than Yin spirit. The Heavenly Sword sect was a sword cultivation sect that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years in the Great Zhou country, so whether it was cultivation techniques or secret techniques, they could be taken out even on the continent. How could this kind of person be easy to deal with? Ling Ying cultivated an orthodox imperial sword technique. The central state genius Chu Xinghe in the past also inherited a similar imperial sword technique, but the Heavenly Sword sect's inheritance was stronger and didn't stick to the form. There were more variations, so naturally it was stronger. Ever since Chu Tian left Great Summer, he hadn't had a good fight. Ling Ying used a sword and Chu Tian also used a sword. Where could he find such a good chance? With a flick of Ling Ying's wrist, there was a flash of sword light and several dozen swords were shot out. Each one was condensed from strong sword chi and they attacked Chu Tian in a very nimble and crafty way. So fast. Chu Tian's body flashed with flames as he quickly retreated with the netherworld flickering flame. The several dozen swords all missed and turned into a single large sword that slashed into the air. Chu Tian couldn't hide anymore, so he had no choice but to reveal himself. He raised his sword with both hands to block it. The ground around him began to crack. That ancient and fierce sword pressure came crashing down, almost slamming Chu Tian into the ground. Sword! Chu Tian gave a low roar and the demon god's sword flew into the sky. The sword aura increased by 10 times, barely blocking Ling Ying's casual slash. When the sword glow was blocked, it shattered and turned into countless intersecting sword chi that surrounded Chu Tian like a giant net. This was a net made of sword chi? Ling Ying's hands came together and the sword net suddenly shrank. This was enough to grind Diamond to pieces. Chu Tian had the Starlight Immortal Body's protection, so even if it could grind Diamond to pieces, it couldn't cut a single hair on his body. However, this sword chi net was like a real net, actually binding Chu Tian to the point where he couldn't move. Chu Tian felt like he was being tied up by a white light and no matter how much strength he used, he couldn't break free in a short period of time. The netherworld ghost flame could burn all kinds of energy. Although he managed to ignite the sword chi, the burning speed was very slow. You dare challenge the Heavenly Sword sect's sword art with this little skill? I don't have time to play with you, go die. Ling Ying revealed a look of disdain. His right hand quickly withdrew his sword and his left hand formed a sword finger, small phaseless sword finger. His fingernail flicked out. Chu Tian's body suddenly erupted with sword chi. Even with the strong Starlight Immortal Body's defense, under this attack, it still dimmed a bit. Chu Tian was sent flying by the violent energy and he fell to the ground. Ling Ying's pupils slightly shrank. Why didn't he die? What kind of peerless defense technique was this? It could even block the small phaseless sword. The netherworld ghost flame exploded, instantly burning away the sword chi around him. Chu Tian stood in the raging flames and his body had already become a fist bigger. The flames covered his body like armor, making him look like a flaming demon at first glance. Good sword art. It's a pity you haven't practiced it enough. The Heavenly Sword Sect's supreme small phaseless sword is not something an ant like you can learn. Although I haven't reached the large success realm like the sect head's senior brother, it's more than enough to kill a small character like you. Then give it a try. Chu Tian's figure turned into 6 and he immediately used his strongest sword move. First eat my move, Netherworld Clone Slash. Small phaseless sword finger. Ling Ying attacked with a flick of his finger, but there was no trace of it. Chu Tian's clones were hit by the sword chi at the same time and 5 of them were destroyed on the spot. The main body was sent flying and fell to the ground. He staggered back several steps and even the flame demon transformation was broken. So strong. He had never seen such a strange sword art before. Small phaseless sword, colorless, formless, impossible to catch, impossible to predict. It was like its name. Ling Ying's sword art looked very simple, but it consumed a lot of spirit energy. He was in a hurry to kill Chu Tian, so he used the phaseless sword twice. Who would have thought that this Heavenly Sword Sect technique that had never failed would not be able to injure this young brat? The small phaseless sword was a peerless technique. Not to mention that Ling Ying's cultivation was far above Chu Tian's. If this matter was spread out, no one would believe it. Chu Tian was also secretly shocked. This was his first time encountering a cultivation technique that he couldn't see through. The small phaseless sword did not have a path to follow, and each time it was used, it would directly hit its target. Ling Ying's empty sword finger against a normal person would definitely explode their body from the inside out. Because the Starlight Immortal body had been cultivated to the perfection realm, its defensive abilities had already penetrated into his flesh and blood, penetrating into every cell, so he could block the empty sword finger. Otherwise, no matter how high the defensive technique was, it wouldn't be able to block this strange attack. Chu Tian had underestimated the Great Zhou country and underestimated this era. Small phaseless sword slash. Ling Ying's spirit energy filled his body and a sword source spirit appeared on the surface of his body, releasing a strong sword intent. With a flick of his wrist, the sword tip flew out from the ground. He still couldn't see the path clearly. Danger! Chu Tian instinctively felt danger and he quickly strengthened his defenses. Sure enough, an invisible sword glow pierced him and the invisible sword chi scattered the Starlight Immortal body's power. Chu Tian staggered back a few steps and blood leaked from the corner of his mouth. Even with the Starlight Immortal body, he was still injured. You still want to fight? Ling Ying's forehead was covered in sweat, but his aura had reached its peak. He pointed his sword at Chu Tian. You can't even dodge my sword and you can't even get close to me. What will you use to fight me? Hey, stop bluffing. Chu Tian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. If you could easily kill me, why would you waste your breath? You just want to buy some time to recover. Can this sword art really take my life in your hands? Ling Ying's eyes filled with rage as if he had been greatly insulted. Chu Tian continued to say, this sword art being buried in the Heavenly Sword Mountain is too much of a waste. It's better if I dig it out and personally practice it. It'll be good for it, don't you think? Ling Ying raised his sword and once again gathered all the spirit energy in his body. Just as he was about to execute another mysterious sword technique, he suddenly noticed a flash of light in Chu Tian's eyes. Ling Ying suddenly felt a strong sense of danger approaching. Before he could react, the surrounding ground suddenly split open. 18 dark golden figures charged out. These were the 18 divine servants. The 18 divine servants had been strengthened and each one had reached the third true spirit layer. Now that they attacked unexpectedly, there was a chance they could kill the others. Small phaseless sword slash. Ling Ying's reaction was very fast as he slashed out at 19 targets. The small phaseless sword was not a single target sword art. This sword art was ever-changing and formless, so it wasn't strange for it to attack many targets at once. Only, the more targets it attacked, the weaker the sword move became. The 18 divine servants were sent flying. Chu Tian was not injured at all after receiving this slash. He had been waiting for this chance for a long time. Chu Tian flew out and a streak of sword chi instantly swept across Ling Ying like a rainbow. His body was split in half with a tremble. Ling Ying struggled a few times before revealing an unwilling expression. Whether it was cultivation or cultivation technique, he surpassed this person, so why did he lose? Chu Tian held his chest and took 2 breaths. A green glow came from his fingers as he slowly healed his injuries. He didn't use his main source spirit in this battle not just to be low-key, but also because he felt this kind of troublesome opponent. He hadn't met one in a long, long time, so fighting this battle had quite a bit of effect on his martial arts heart. Nangong Yun was fighting the Black Tortoise sect master Jin Kuei. The great Zhou country was still a large country. Just like the Heavenly Sword sect's Ling Ying, the other sect masters were not normal people. Nangong Yun's cultivation was a bit higher than Chu Tian's and his source spirit cultivation technique was at the peak. If he didn't use his main source spirit, Nangong Yun's battle strength was much higher than Chu Tian's, but he could only fight to a draw with Jin Kuei. The other 3 sect masters' battle strength was not simple either. The little fox controlled several demon beasts to tie down the Eagle Burial Kingdom generals. Looking at the overall situation, Chu Tian's side was at a disadvantage. The forest experts from Miracle City were clearly a bit weaker than them. Go! The 18 divine servants attacked the leaders of the mountain sections. The 18 divine servants were all in the 3rd true spirit layer. Not only were they in the 3rd true spirit layer, they were all very hard to deal with, not something these fellows could easily deal with. Nangong Yun instantly felt the pressure on her decrease. Chu Tian raised his sword and charged at the Eagle Burial Kingdom generals. The sword glow cut open the cloak of a mysterious person and the spirit beast revealed its true appearance. Open your eyes wide and look. This is the helper the Heavenly Sword sect found. Chu Tian's sword moved faster and faster. Several spirit beasts were cut down by his sword. The Medicine King Valley, Divine Machine Hall, Void Spirit Cave, and Black Tortoise sect all had different expressions. If it was just a few spirit beasts, it wouldn't be strange. Now that they found out that these mysterious people were all spirit beasts, from their clothes and totems, they were all the same. It was impossible for the Heavenly Sword sect to recruit so many people. This was simply a troop that had been placed in the Heavenly Sword sect. Do you see this? Chu Tian shouted as he killed. The Heavenly Sword sect is the true scourge of the great Zhou country. If you continue to help them, even if the Black Moon sect is destroyed, do you think you can escape? The great Zhou country will become the Eagle Burial Kingdom's pasture sooner or later. Have your people put down their weapons? I promise I won't kill them. Don't believe him. A spirit beast roared out in a hoarse voice. They are people from the Forest of Chaos. The Black Moon sect has already colluded with the Forest of Chaos, so their motives aren't pure. They are just trying to confuse us now. Chu Tian gave a cold snort, seeking death. Spatial movement. Chu Tian raised the flaming sword and directly cut this person in half. The others were shocked when they saw this. This young man didn't even use his full strength when he fought Ling Ying. Kill. At this time, a wolf race expert wildly slashed out with his dual blades. Chu Tian's burning netherworld sword charged forward, completely ignoring the attacks. The sword in his hand was like a graceful bird as it flew forward. The wolf race expert was shocked to find that the saber glow was easily bounced off Chu Tian's body. It was like a drop of water hitting a boulder. It didn't cause the slightest bit of damage. The other side's sword glows came closer and closer. The wolf race expert gave a pitiful cry. Chu Tian's sword was like a rainbow as it pierced through the illusory blade glows, instantly piercing through his chest from the ground to the sky. The netherworld ghost flame wildly surged out, turning his body into countless black pieces that fell to the ground. If you stubbornly resist. Chu Tian stabilized himself and raised his sword, his killing intent sword. That will be the result of all of you. The expressions of the sect leaders all fell. Go! Wanna run? Chu Tian instantly slashed out at Yuan Zhenan's mechanical armor. With a crackling sound, he was forced back to his original position. I'm afraid you won't be able to run. The 18 divine servants, Chu Tian, and Nangong Yun. The 20 of them were attacking together. The entire battle lasted for less than 3 minutes. These sect leaders, the people with the highest status in Great Zhou, were all heavily injured by Chu Tian, lying on the ground like dead dogs, unable to move. You're wild, you should be wild again. Nangong Yun kicked Jin Kuei a few times. If you have the guts, stand up and fight another 300 rounds with this old lady. Nangong, that's enough. Tie them up immediately. Yes, boss. Chu Tian stood on the heavenly Yin mountain and looked into the distance as he said, from today onwards, the great Zhou country will change. Chapter 1005. Miracle City's blessing in disguise didn't mean they didn't have to worry. The three powers wouldn't easily compromise and the elves wouldn't easily give up. In this complicated situation, they could only cooperate with the Elven King to stabilize the elves and also develop Miracle City's military strength. The Trey Ants wouldn't accept any orders. If Miracle City wanted to dominate the forest, they had to have a strong military strength that all the powers feared. Miracle Commerce couldn't train peak experts for now, so they had to develop more advanced weapons. For this, Chu Tian and Meng Qingwu came to the Great Summer Country to understand the situation. The Great Summer's Yun sect's highest leaders, Gu Qianxiu and Yun Tianhe, personally came to greet them. These two old fellows were now true spirit cultivators, so they looked a bit younger than before. Being able to grow this fast at such an old age, one was because of their decades of experience and the other was because of Miracle Commerce. Chairman, Vice Chairman, please take a look. This is Miracle Commerce's first automated smart brain factory. The two of them were filled with pride because the factory in front of them had a special meaning to Miracle Commerce. This was Miracle Commerce's first fully automated and intelligent factory, as well as the first automated factory in the history of the continent. Miracle Commerce had invested a lot of manpower and resources, but the returns were worth it. Gu Qianxiu said to Chu Tian while walking, "We've already created a new generation of manufacturing. From now on, arrays and talismans to equipment processing, the entire production process doesn't need any manpower and these machines can do it for us. From the simple lights and source energy pots to the complex cell phones and even the source energy computers, the core parts can all be placed in the factory for 24-hour automatic production." Chu Tian and Meng Qingwu listened to the introductions while walking. This factory wasn't too big, but it wasn't small either. With 200 automatic machines working at the same time, its speed and efficiency was several times that of a human's. It was equivalent to saving Miracle Commerce a team of 1,000 people. Moreover, they wouldn't make any mistakes, they wouldn't get tired, and they wouldn't stop. They would be working at the highest efficiency every second. As for the 1,000 people who were released, they could save a day of work. Miracle Commerce could put more people into research and development, creating a virtuous cycle. Chu Tian asked, "How long does it take to create a super source energy matrix here?" With the smart brain controlling it, the talisman engraving machines can work automatically, increasing the efficiency of the entire factory. It is already not something that humans can compare to. Yun Tianhe said with pride, "We can produce a set every day. This was something we didn't even dare think about before." A set every day was still too slow. But everything had to be done step by step. Meng Qingwu was very satisfied. Although the smart brain's processing speed is limited, increasing the number of smart brains can make up for the lack of individual abilities. Our space warehouse, transportation system, financial system, weapon equipment, manufacturing, research and development, each industry requires a large number of smart brains to control. Smart brains were truly good things. Before Chu Tian invented this thing, Meng Qingwu would not have been able to experience its benefits. But now she found that she couldn't leave smart brains. Miracle City couldn't rely on 0 and number 2, they needed even more smart brains. This place will be a computer manufacturing factory. We will only make supercomputers and not care about anything else. Chu Tian felt it wasn't enough. Other than that, we need to make even faster and more advanced intelligent factories. In half a year, the Great Summer Country will have 10, Oldman Small Town will have 5, and Miracle City will have 20. The two old men couldn't help being speechless. That many? This is the lowest requirement. Meng Qingwu replied for Chu Tian, the manufacturing industry is the support for prosperity. Although Miracle Commerce doesn't have much money, we have accumulated enough resources over the past year and there are enough gnome scholars, so we don't need to worry about manpower. Our company's resources and manpower allocation are the highest priority, so you can directly report to the production minister Yinging. Gu Qianxiu and Yun Tianhe nodded. Let's look at the weapons. Alright, according to the chairman's design, a team of 500 people has been working on it for several months. Adding in the addition of Smart Brain, the research has increased by a large amount. The first generation of close combat energy and defensive weapons have finally been completed. Chu Tian was a bit surprised. Let's take a look first. Gu Qianxiu took out a black metal sword hilt and a similarly black metal arm guard. Chu Tian and Meng Qingwu were the highest leaders of the Yun sect. There was no need to mention Chu Tian. The core technology and ideas of the Yun sect project were all proposed by him. Meng Qingwu was not simple either. Her strong learning and memory allowed her to grasp more technology than any of the Yun sect scholars. This was the energy sword and energy shield. Miracle Commerce had always focused on researching source energy equipment, so it was impossible for the two of them to be unfamiliar with it. Miracle Commerce's source energy weapons were mainly long-range cannons and missiles, lacking in close-range attacks and defense. This energy sword and energy shield was made to make up for these shortcomings. Of course, compared to normal source energy weapons, this equipment was much more technologically advanced. Although Chu Tian had provided the core technology and ideas, it still took several months of research and several tens of thousands of source stones and materials, as well as several tens of thousands of failures to succeed. The energy sword and energy shield use white energy. Yun Tianhe picked up the sword hilt and activated the array on it. A spider web of light spread out and with a slight buzzing sound, a bright beam of light shot out from the sword hilt. The light was not dazzling, looking very beautiful, but it also released a strong and dangerous energy fluctuation. The energy of the light sword is several times stronger than the source energy cannons. It can easily cut open a true spirit realm expert's protective spirit energy at close range, so its killing power in close range is quite impressive. Not bad. Chu Tian looked at the arm guard. How about the energy shield? In comparison, Meng Qingwu was more focused on the energy shield technology. The energy sword could only be used in close range, but the energy shield was different. If Miracle Commerce could master the energy shield technology, they could use it in all aspects. Not only could it protect a person, it could also protect the source energy cannons, missile launchers, airships, battleships, and even cities. Yun Tianhe put the arm guard on his left hand and activated the source energy array. A half arc of energy was released from the groove on the arm guard, covering around 2/3 of his body. The light was condensed like the energy sword and did not scatter, flowing like water. The energy shield also uses white energy. Large amounts of energy particles collide with each other to create a repulsive force, repelling energy and physical attacks. All the energy is one, and every time it receives an attack, it will be weakened by a bit. In a full state, it can block an attack from an earth spirit cultivator. Meng Qingwu's eyes lit up. Very strong. If normal soldiers could block an attack from an earth spirit cultivator, even if it was just one attack, the battle strength of the army would increase by a large amount. This was too much of a pity. If this weapon was mass-produced earlier, they wouldn't have suffered so many losses in the war. But since the research had succeeded, would it be far from mass production? Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. Our source energy equipment technology has already matured. Now it's time to create even higher-grade war weapons. Meng Qingwu knit her brows. Even higher-grade war weapons? Chu Tian said, the airships are still too weak. I feel like we have the ability to create even higher-grade energy devices. Moreover, we can use smart brains, radars, guided missiles, source energy cannons, energy shields, and etc. This kind of aircraft is the true overlord of the skies. The moment he said that, everyone was quite frightened. Smart brains, radars, guided missiles, source energy cannons, and even the newest energy shields. Adding in a higher-grade energy structure than the airships, this kind of weapon made people's blood run cold just thinking about it. Perhaps just a few of them would be enough to conquer a small country. These individual technologies are all maturing. I don't think it will be a big problem. Meng Qingwu closed her eyes to think for a bit before finally shaking her head and saying, but for this kind of complex war weapon, even if we have smart brains, we still need large amounts of talents, resources, and funds. Miracle Commerce doesn't have enough people to support this project and our funds will be tight, so I don't think it's time yet. Chu Tian was a bit puzzled. If we take in the gnomes, would we still lack talents? Although there are many gnome scholars, they haven't worked in Miracle Commerce before, so they don't understand our technology. They need time to adapt and learn. Not to mention that Miracle Commerce has too many research projects. Even if we have the gnome scholars, we still lack talents in certain fields. Resources and funds were also a problem. This was not something as simple as making an energy sword or an energy shield. Was he too impatient? Chu Tian was thinking of how to solve this problem when Vivian suddenly called him. She excitedly shouted, "The source stones in the Eternal Forest have already been stored in the warehouse. My royal father and I are in Miracle City. Where are you? Quickly come." Elven King. Chu Tian fell into deep thought. Lancelot was a very open king. He was more determined to reform the elves than to bring the ancient tree of life back to the Eternal Forest. This was because this young elven king was very clear that if the Eternal Forest obtained the ancient tree of life, they would have to isolate themselves for a long time. Would the elves be able to sit back and relax forever with the ancient tree of life? Impossible. The protection the ancient tree of life gave the elves would only make the elves more isolated. This kind of isolation was very terrifying. The continent's spirit beasts and humans were developing like the sun in the sky, but the former overlords of the elves were gradually being marginalized. If this situation was not changed, the elves would become a weak small race in 10,000 years. If the Elven King wanted to reform, Miracle City was the key. Chapter 1006. At the foot of the heavenly Een Mountain, the 6 great sects were in a chaotic battle. Endless Een led the Black Moon sect to beat the disciples of the other sects into a mess. All of you stop. All of you stop for me. Your sect masters are in my hands. Put down your weapons and surrender. Otherwise, I'll kill them and then kill you all. Chu Tian set up a giant loudspeaker on the mountain and the rolling sound waves were like thunder. Father will do what he says, please don't test my patience. While he was speaking, Nangong Yun pushed the tied-up people into a row on the cliff. The sect leaders and elders of these mountain sects had all been captured. This was a destructive blow to the morale of the cultivators of the 5 spiritual mountains. The situation was already bad, and now that their sect masters had been captured, how could they still fight? Chu Tian shouted into the loudspeaker, "This matter is purely a plot by the Heavenly Sword sect. The Heavenly Sword sect is colluding with the Eagle Burial Kingdom. In order to obtain more benefits and resources, they are colluding with other races to wipe out all the large and small sects of the Great Zhou country. This kind of evil action is simply worthy of the Heavenly Sword sect's punishment." Nangong Yun hung up the corpses of the Eagle Burial Kingdom generals. "All of you open your dog eyes and look, these are the consecrators of the Eagle Burial Kingdom. We have already found enough tokens and evidence on their bodies. These fellows are the Eagle Burial Kingdom's generals. The Heavenly Sword sect betrayed the Great Zhou country, so the Heavenly Sword sect is the true enemy." The crowd instantly fell into chaos. The 4 great sects looked at the Heavenly Sword sect with vigilant eyes. Nonsense. The Heavenly Sword sect has existed for tens of thousands of years and is the head of the Great Zhou country. How could they join the Eagle Burial Kingdom? The Heavenly Sword sect people instantly fell into a panic. If Chu Tian's words were true, the Heavenly Sword sect would be enraged and these Heavenly Sword sect disciples would suffer a disaster. Chu Tian shouted into the loudspeaker, "Whether you believe me or not, The evidence is like a mountain. I'll say it again, we can forgive you if you stop in the nick of time, but we won't forgive you if you resist to the end. I'll give you 10 more seconds to put down your weapons, otherwise I'll kill your sect masters and elders first before sending you to see your ancestors. Everyone looked at each other in blank dismay. Finally they all put down their weapons. Chu Tian let out a long sigh of relief. He had finally dealt with these fellows. He immediately ordered, "Endless Een, immediately tie them up. Treat the injured and give the poison the antidote, don't let them die." The Black Moon Sect's crisis was smoothly resolved like this. They had captured over 300,000 captives. The Black Moon Sect watched over them from top to bottom, preventing these people from causing trouble. Chu Tian didn't come to the Great Zhou country to cause chaos. He just liked the Great Zhou country's rich talent reserve, the Great Zhou country's good location, the Great Zhou country's rich resources, and the Great Zhou country's unexplored market. Chu Tian came to develop the Great Zhou country, so he didn't need to kill too much. He immediately told the company to prepare medicine and antidote, as well as enough food, saving the lives of these captives first. "Go in. Quickly go in. Fuck. Hurry up for this old lady. Quickly kneel down." Nangong Yun pushed, kicked, and hammered, just like a beggar. She sent the 4 sect masters in front of Chu Tian. "Do you believe that I won't break your legs? How many times have I said it? Don't be so violent." Chu Tian seemed like a different person as he lectured in a serious tone. "Everyone here is a civilized person. We should use virtue to win people over. Do you understand?" Nangong Yun rolled her eyes. "I'm sorry, I didn't manage my subordinates well and made you suffer." Chu Tian waved his hand at the 4 of them. "Nangong, why haven't you brought them tea yet?" Nangong Yun's eyes popped out. "Boss, did you make a mistake? You actually want me to apologize to them? It's already good enough that this old lady didn't castrate them." Yuan Zhenan's group of 4 were all famous people in Great Zhou. Nangong Yun's words made them feel cold. Chu Tian helplessly waved his hand. "All right, I have no intention of making it hard for you. Let's have an open discussion. I'm prepared to rebuild the Great Zhou royal family and push the Great Zhou princess Qin Bingyu onto the throne as the Great Zhou queen. As long as you are willing to support me, I can let you go and all grudges will be written off." "Who do you think you are?" Jean Kuei looked up with a bloody nose. His eyes were red and his teeth were itching. What qualifications does an outsider have to care about the Great Zhou country's matters? "You have guts, you're a man." Chu Tian narrowed his eyes as he spoke with a laugh, but he gave Nangong Yun a look. Nangong Yun charged forward and placed Jean Kuei on the ground. She raised her boot and kicked his crotch. This 2-meter-tall giant let out a bear-like howl. His body curled up as he painfully rolled around on the ground. Nangong Yun fiercely lifted him up and took out a short knife from her waist. "This kick is just a lesson. If you don't give me face again, this old lady will cut off your 2 toys and put them in your mouth." Jean Kuei angrily roared, "If you have the guts, then give me a quick death. The Black Tortoise sect can be killed but not humiliated." "All right." Nangong Yun angrily raised her knife and was about to attack. Nangong, stop, quickly stop. How could you forget what I said to you and ignore it? We civilized people have to convince people with virtue. Using force won't solve problems. Chu Tian stopped Nangong Yun. "I respect unyielding heroes the most, so don't make it hard for this sect, Master Jean." Chu Tian's eyes fell onto the other people. "What do you guys think?" The Void Spirit Cave's Gu Lianshan calmly said, "Little brat, there is no need to say so much. We are lucky to have the previous sect master's trust, allowing us to control the 10,000-year-old sect. If we give in, how will we face our ancestors?" "That's right." Medicine King Valley's Wang Tian Yun lightly said, "If you think you can make us give in with threats, then you are looking down on us too much." The Divine Machine Hall's Yuan Zhenan was filled with righteous indignation. "If you want to kill us, then do as you please." They were all hard bones. This was a bit hard to deal with. Nangong Yun's eyebrows knit together as she prepared to explode. She didn't believe that if she taught these fellows a lesson, they would still be hard like this. "Don't be nervous, don't misunderstand." Chu Tian stood up with a sincere smile on his face. You must have made a mistake. Did I say I wanted you to give in? No, 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 there are still many things waiting for me in my territory. There are still large amounts of resources and land waiting to be conquered. I'll be honest, a place like Great Zhou, I don't put it in my eyes at all. Then what do you want? I just want to cooperate with you all. Chu Tian calmly explained without any threatening tone. Right now the Great Summer Country and the Warhounds Plains have a close relationship with Miracle Commerce, but the Great Summer Country and the Warhounds Plains are a bit weak. If the Great Zhou Country can join this alliance, we will have enough confidence and strength to expand into the surroundings. We can connect the nearby large and small kingdoms and finally form a barrier to the north against the Eagle Burial Kingdom. Whether you believe it or not, the Heavenly Sword Sect and the Eagle Burial Kingdom colluding is an ironclad fact. Since the Eagle Burial Kingdom has already infiltrated Great Zhou several years ago, I think Great Zhou isn't far from war. The Eagle Burial Kingdom was a very strong country. In just a short 10-20 years, the Eagle Burial Kingdom had wildly expanded their territory, swallowing at least 20 large and small kingdoms, and they were still wildly expanding. The Great Zhou country was stronger than the surrounding kingdoms, so the Eagle Burial Kingdom did not easily bite this hard bone. However, everyone knew that the Eagle Burial Kingdom would invade Great Zhou sooner or later. The matter of the Heavenly Sword Sect colluding with the Eagle Burial Kingdom had provoked everyone's nerves. As the leader of the Great Zhou country, the Eagle Burial Kingdom could even bribe the Heavenly Sword Sect. Their intent to invade was clear, so pretending to be deaf and dumb wouldn't solve the problem. Chu Tian saw that everyone was deep in thought, so he immediately continued, the Great Zhou royal family was slaughtered by the Heavenly Sword Sect in the past. Although you all participated, as long as you can help us rebuild the Great Zhou royal family and help us deal with the Heavenly Sword Sect, this matter will be written off. This is just your side of the story. Why should we help you? That's right, the Great Zhou people will take care of the Great Zhou country's matters. You want to interfere as an outsider and want to support a new power in Great Zhou. Do you not have any evil intentions? Nan Gongyun couldn't help saying, you're simply refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. It's normal for you to have doubts. The Black Moon Sect's Yin Spirit was like this in the past. Do you know why she changed her mind? Yin Spirit? She's just a baby that hasn't even grown up for a few years. What is she doing? She was just bewitched by you. That's not necessarily true. Chu Tian didn't have time to waste with them. Nangong, bring them to Miracle City and have a look at Miracle City in a few days. If I return to the Heavenly Yin Mountains in a few days and you still think that I don't have pure intentions of occupying the Great Zhou country, then just let them go. I Chu Tian will not force anyone. Nangong Yun quickly said, if I go back, who will find Big Sister Bing and the others? I don't know where they are right now. Have Vivian come over, it'll be easier for her to search with her spatial abilities. Alright, don't say any more, quickly go. Alright. Nangong Yun had no choice but to bring them to the transport tower. Chu Tian found Endless Yin to ask. From Endless Yin's description, Chen Bingyu and the others should have gone to a place called the Death Ice Field, in the Great Zhou country. The Death Ice Field was a place rarely visited by people. It was high above sea level and had a cold climate, with little life. It was said that the Chen family's ancestral land was there. Yoda's prophecy shouldn't be wrong. They hadn't returned for several days, so they might have encountered some trouble. But it didn't matter. Since they knew the general location, it shouldn't be hard to find them. Not long after Nangong Yun returned to Miracle City, Vivian was sent over to report. Big Brother Chu Tian, you're finally willing to bring me out to do something. Chu Tian looked over Vivian and said in a surprised voice, your cultivation seems to have increased. That's right, I'm in the 5th true spirit layer. Vivian looked up with a bit of pride. Even if we meet strong bad people now, I can still help Big Brother beat them. That's great. Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. There's no time to lose, let's go. Chapter 1007. The Source Stones have been loaded. Vivian personally counted the Source Stones several times to make sure none were missing before running in front of Chu Tian to report, I ask Big Brother to check. No need, no need. Vivian is one of us. Could she be unreliable? Vivian's heart felt warm as she happily said, "Of course, I'm a person of Miracle City in life and a ghost of Miracle City in death. I won't do anything bad to Miracle City, so Big Brother Chu Tian can trust me." The Elven King couldn't help giving a soft cough. Did this girl even forget what race she was? Miracle Bank's Source Stone reserves instantly increased by over 100,000. This could cover the bad debts and make up for the losses from the war, stabilizing Miracle City's financial situation. Miracle City could use this money as they pleased. Chu Tian wasn't afraid of not being able to pay it back in a year. The Elven King's efficiency is higher than expected, so I won't hesitate. Yingying, take out the smart brain. Meng Yingying placed the smart brain in front of the Elven King. Your Highness, this is Miracle Commerce's newest smart brain. Its performance has been slightly increased and it can calculate 1,300,000,000 times per second. The smart body has also been trained and can recognize orders and learn, but it still needs to be tested. If there are any problems in the future that need to be repaired or if you need to increase its speed, our Miracle City will take care of it. There will be no after-sales fees. This transaction was clearly not worth it. 150,000 Source Stones in Miracle Bank would cost several tens of thousands of Source Stones a year, and using several tens of thousands of Source Stones to buy a smart brain was a loss no matter how one looked at it. This was because with Miracle Commerce's current manufacturing ability, with the intelligent factory, a smart brain would only cost several hundred Source Stones at most. This debt couldn't be completely calculated like this. The so-called rare things were precious. Other than Miracle City, the Eternal Forest was the first place to have a smart brain, so managing it in the future would be much easier. The Elven King would have more time to do other things, so it seemed like it was worth it. Anyways, there was no use piling up Source Stones in the Eternal Forest. Chu Tian then said, "I am a person who knows how to repay kindness. The Elven King has helped Miracle City pass through a large problem, so Miracle City is filled with gratitude. There is a plan to deepen our cooperation with the Eternal Forest. I wonder if the elves are interested?" What medicine was this fellow selling? Your Majesty, the Elven King, understands that Miracle Commerce has countless cutting-edge technologies, but we lack resources and ability, so Miracle Commerce's expansion in the Forest of Chaos has been hindered. The Eternal Forest is the opposite. You have tens of thousands of years of accumulated resources and many large forest cities. You have a large influence in the Forest of Chaos, but you haven't used your resources to their full potential. The Elven King looked at him with a strange gaze. You want to? If the two sides work together, wouldn't the situation change greatly? Chu Tian didn't like beating around the bush, so he directly said his thoughts. We'll work together to develop the forest. I'll provide the technology and you provide the manpower, finally sharing the benefits. For example, the Eternal Forest has large amounts of spatial crystals and there are many rare innate spatial energy users. They might not be used in the Eternal Forest for 100 years, but they are incomparably precious resources for Miracle City. If the Elven King takes them out and we provide the spatial technology, we can create large amounts of transport towers and space warehouses in the forest in a short period of time, creating considerable value. Wouldn't it be a win-win situation in the end? A glow flashed in the Elven King's eyes. It was like what Chu Tian said, this was a large win for both sides. The elves' wealth and resources were just hoarding, there was no way they could create any value. Although Miracle City had large amounts of products and technology, they couldn't develop in the forest in a short period of time because of their influence and background. In this kind of situation, if both sides cooperated, how could they not advance by leaps and bounds? Vivian exclaimed, "That's a great idea. Royal Father, let's do it." The elves have many talents. Rather than wasting them, it's better to have them work for Miracle City. Chu Tian saw that the Elven King was moved, so he struck while the iron was hot. This way they can display their individual value and also bring benefits to the elves. Then what kind of people do you want? As long as they are knowledgeable and have true talent, like being proficient in array theory or medicine theory. Other than that, there are special talents like spatial attributed, spiritual attributed, and life attributed. The more the better, I want them all. Your appetite is too big. There are many talents in the elves and most of them are famous people. If the council finds out and rejects this, I'm afraid this matter will not be easy to solve. Chu Tian shrugged his shoulders. This will depend on the Elven King's methods. I believe that everything the Elven King does, it will shine for generations to come. You will be the most important reformer in the history of the elves, so why do you care about these obstacles? A king should have the aggressiveness and boldness of a king. The Elven King gave a soft snort. It's easy for you to say. I saw that the Elven King has helped me before, so I sincerely want to cooperate with the Eternal Forest. If the Elven King can't even make a decision on this matter, I can only go to Dragon City to cooperate with the Dragon Lord. Chu Tian spread out his hands like he didn't care. The Dragon Lord's resources are not less than the Eternal Forests and the Dragon Lord cannot resist making money. Big Brother Chutin, don't. Vivian scratched her head in worry. Especially when she heard that Chu Tian was prepared to cooperate with the Black Dragon, she was very worried. We can't be tied down by those old men anymore. What are you worried for, you little girl? You should at most believe half of this brat's words. Only he can think of cooperating with the Dragon Lord. Cooperation needed strength to support it. Miracle City was so weak and wanted to negotiate with the Dragon's Ridge, how could they obtain fair treatment? Who in the forest didn't know about the Black Dragon's greed? Not to mention that Deathwing was eyeing Miracle City, wasn't this asking a tiger for its skin? Miracle City chose to cooperate with the Eternal Forest, so they could only cooperate with the Eternal Forest. Alright, you don't need to provoke me. The Elven King said to Chu Tian, let's talk about the plan first. The elves will take out their spatial crystals to build transport towers and will first build a transport network in the forest. Other than that, the elves will send as many innate spatial energy users into Miracle City. Vivian will lead the development of space warehouses and the logistics network. Other than that, the elves will support Miracle City's communication infrastructure and the surrounding elven cities. Logistics, people, and information. This was the foundation of all development. This isn't a problem. The Elven King nodded. How will we split the benefits from the transport towers and space warehouses? Miracle Commerce's drama has already begun shooting and it will be broadcast on Le TV in the future. The movie has also been prepared. Everyone think about it, the name you gave yourself will appear on the screen, wouldn't that be a great thing? Hey, this opportunity can't be missed and it won't come again. Because the new book was about the apocalypse, the requirements for the main character's name were as follows. 1. Don't westernize the name. 2. Don't be too flashy. 3. It's best if it's simple, but it doesn't follow the conventions. Chapter 1008. Several dozen forest experts were left in the Heavenly Een Mountain. Endless Een had to quickly prepare to attack the Heavenly Sword Mountain because the Heavenly Sword Mountain was colluding with the Eagle Burial Kingdom. Now that things had gone wrong, if they didn't quickly take care of the Heavenly Sword Sect, perhaps the Heavenly Sword Sect would ally with the Eagle Burial Kingdom. If this matter developed to this point, it would be a very bad matter. Other than that, the great Zhou royal family's reconstruction meant that the benefits would be redistributed. Who would be willing to give up their own resources and territory? The best way was to use a justifiable reason to push away a large power. This way, they could take over all the territory and resources and the other powers could take advantage of it. This was a happy situation for everyone. Chu Tian could only do this much. The situation on Qin Bingyu's side was unclear, so she had no time to worry about it. Vivian had reached the 5th true spirit layer and her strength had increased by a large amount. Although the Great Zhou country was a bit larger than the Great Summer country, in front of Vivian's spatial ability, this bit of distance didn't matter at all. After several teleportations, the two of them arrived at the Death Ice Field. Wow, this place is so beautiful. This peak stood on high ground and the Earth's spiritual veins and resources were mainly ice attributed, therefore large amounts of ice elemental energy were gathered here, causing this area to be covered in ice and snow for tens of thousands of years. It was empty, silent, and cold. Looking from afar, the terrain was not flat. There were undulating mountains and snowy ridges, with no vegetation covering them at all. It was a unique snow scene. Vivian couldn't help shivering a few times. Strange, this place is too cold. It can actually affect me through my protective spirit energy. That's right, the ice elemental energy here is too rich. Chu Tian also felt the cold and he had to circulate his spirit energy to resist it. If my guesses aren't wrong, there is a rare ice vein at the bottom of the death ice field that gathers a very strong ice elemental energy. This cold is not caused by normal temperatures, so it can directly affect a person's body. If one doesn't have a true spirit cultivation, perhaps their spirit energy will freeze in less than a day. They can't stay here at all, so it's called the death ice field. Big Sister Bingyu and In's spirit are here? Vivian said with a depressed expression. The ice field isn't small and the communication signal doesn't cover this area. How long will it take for us to find them? Did you forget? We have a tracking expert. A snow-white little fox came out and sat on his shoulder, proudly wagging its tail. Other than this fox, was there anyone else that could do this? Vivian suddenly realized that she had forgotten about the little fox again. Little fellow, we have many things to do, so don't waste time. Chu Tian patted the little fox's shoulder and said, the most important thing right now is to quickly find them. I'll properly reward you when we return. The little fox nodded in satisfaction. It closed its eyes to sense around before pointing in a direction with its claw. Vivian immediately placed a snow-white hand on Chu Tian's shoulder and the two of them jumped 100 miles. The death ice field was not small and there would often be various snowstorms and death-cold currents. It would be very troublesome to travel on foot, but it was much more convenient with the spatial transferability. The death ice field was large enough for normal people. But for Vivian, who could travel several hundred miles in an instant, it was too small. Under the little fox's guidance, Vivian used spatial teleportation several times before finally finding something. There was a very large ice lake on the north side of the death ice field. The entire lake was covered in blue ice, just like a smooth mirror on the ground. There was blue energy flowing in the ice rain. This was the location of the eye of the ice vein. The energy aura on the surface of the ice lake was even stronger and even a true spirit cultivator couldn't resist it. That's the place we're looking for. Vivian found an ice castle in the center of the ice lake. It looked very old and waves of ice energy were being released from it. Look, isn't that Yoda? There was a green dragon coiled around the ice castle that was over 10 meters long. It had an awe-inspiring aura and was very spirited. Although most of its scales were covered in ice, there was still a strong pressure coming from its body. It couldn't be wrong. This was the green dragon that Yoda had transformed into. Vivian looked over it a few times. Prophet Yoda seems to be injured. Although the green dragon was awe-inspiring, its body was still injured, especially its neck. Large pieces of scales had disappeared and the flesh seemed like it had just recovered. There were at least several dozen injuries on its body. It was clear that it had experienced a bitter battle. Let's go over. Chu Tian stopped Vivian. From Yoda's situation, they have clearly met a strong enemy. There's no need to rush out. Let's take a look at the situation first. After saying this, Chu Tian released the divine servants from the sealed scrolls and hid nearby to observe the situation. After a few hours, a group of people appeared on the ice field. There were over 20 of them and they were all spirit beasts. There were a few humans leading them and from their clothes, they should be high-level members of the Heavenly Sword sect. Vivian was instantly excited. Big Brother was right, their people are already here. Chu Tian made a silent gesture. Let's keep watching. Old thing, do you really have to resist to the end? A gray-haired sword cultivator wearing a crown coldly looked at the green dragon, with 4-5 swords circling around him. He didn't look angry, but his aura was very threatening. You don't have much strength left. Do you really want to give up your life for this kind of thing? The green dragon gave a low roar with flames flashing in its throat. Its wings created a large amount of wind and snow as it released a sharp aura that swept out in all directions. Seeking death. The sword cultivator flew into the air and his hands formed sword fingers, small phaseless sword finger. The scales that had just grown on the green dragon's neck exploded once again, with large amounts of blood and flesh spraying out. The green dragon ignored this as it flapped its wings to charge forward. The 2030 spirit beast experts all moved. They first used a barrier to protect the sword cultivator, then they used various slowing, numbing, and all kinds of strange witchcraft techniques on the green dragon. Even if the green dragon's strength was very shocking, it was still very strenuous for it to fight against all of them. Chu Tian knit his brows when he saw this. Small phaseless sword? It didn't need to be said to know that it was the heavenly sword sect master Ling Wanjian. From the strength Ling Wanjian displayed, this person's cultivation had already reached the peak 5th true spirit layer, and his small phaseless sword was a level higher than Ling Ying's. The spirit beast experts weren't simple. There were 4 in the 6th true spirit layer among the 20 people. Although the dragon's defense was very strong and it was hard for these people to break through, it was more than enough to restrain Yoda. Ling Wanjian's cultivation was not high, but the small phaseless sword was a very strong attack technique. Even if he was in the peak 5th true spirit layer, it was enough for him to pierce through the dragon's scales. Yoda had spent several days passively defending, so it was clear that it was very strenuous now. Yoda was not a true green dragon. His dragon form was just a druid's secret technique. Therefore, to maintain his dragon form, he needed to spend quite a bit of energy at every moment. When the battle dragged on, he naturally began to lose strength. Vivian was very anxious. Big brother Chu Tian, let's make a move. Calm down first. Chu Tian said in a low voice. The small phaseless sword is very dangerous. Ling Wanjian's sword art has reached the large success realm, so it will be dangerous if we act rashly. Make your preparations first. As long as the time is right, we'll immediately attack. Alright. The green dragon faced Ling Wanjian's increasingly fierce attacks and could no longer take the initiative, so the battle became more and more disadvantageous. The injuries on his body quickly increased. The green dragon was a dragon of life, so its recovery was very strong, but it couldn't keep up with this kind of damage. Of course. Ling Wanjian had consumed a lot of energy, but he could feel his advantage becoming more and more obvious. He became more and more confident, so he did not hold back at all and used all his strength to wildly attack. I want to see how long you can keep this up. Small phaseless sword rain. Ling Wanjian's elemental energy frantically flowed out as his 10 fingers burst forth with power. This was a wave of sword finger attacks that used up most of Ling Wanjian's remaining strength. The green dragon gave a mournful cry and was sent flying with a bloody glow. All right. Now's the time. Vivian sent the 18 divine servants to Ling Wanjian. Suddenly, 18 figures appeared beside Ling Wanjian. They attacked Ling Wanjian at an extremely fast speed. Damn, there's an ambush. Ling Wanjian used his spirit energy to send several divine servants flying with a single sword finger. The spirit beast experts gave up on restraining the green dragon and flew into the air to block the remaining divine servants. When their attention was attracted, Vivian released her spatial energy again. Chu Tian appeared behind Ling Wanjian and stabbed out with all his strength. Ling Wanjian quickly sent out a sword chi in the air. Ding! It made Chu Tian feel the netherworld sword tremble. This strong strength almost sent the netherworld sword flying. You want to sneak attack me with this bit of strength? Ling Wanjian's face turned fierce as he roared, let's die together. Ling Wanjian condensed a sword chi, and when he was about to cut Chu Tian in half, he felt another spatial fluctuation appear beside him. There was actually someone else. Ling Wanjian tried to change the direction of the sword chi, but as soon as he moved, there was a spatial energy that fell on his body. It was like a sharp blade cutting him from head to toe. Vivian's attack, spatial slash. The timing of this attack was perfect. After Ling Wanjian released a large attack, he first forced back the divine servants and then forced back Chu Tian. He could not use the small phaseless sword, and Vivian's spatial attack had already been used before the teleportation array arrived. The fluctuations from Vivian's teleportation array covered up the spatial slash, so Ling Wanjian tried to force back Vivian. He did not know that a fatal attack had already arrived on his body. From head to toe, Ling Wanjian was directly cut in half. This top expert of the Great Zhou dynasty had died here for no apparent reason. Chu Tian said in a somewhat regretful voice, "You were too fast, you could have cut him in half and kept his life. It's a pity that we couldn't obtain the small phaseless sword." Chu Tian was very interested in the Heavenly Sword sect's small phaseless sword. The sect master and vice-sect master had all died, so it would be hard for him to obtain the sect's secret art. "You're finally here." Yoda let out a long sigh of relief. He had reached his limit. Chapter 1009. The Great Zhou country had sent news before that Chen Bingyu, In Spirit, and Yoda's group had a conflict with the 5 spiritual mountains. Although the situation was very tense, they had not fought yet. Yoda had locked onto the Great Zhou royal family ruins at this time. Since he had locked onto it, he would go find it. What was so strange about it? Actually, before heading to the ruins, Yoda felt a strong sense of danger. You know that the druid's prophetic ability is very special. Since he could feel danger, it meant that this trip was very dangerous. Therefore, Yoda was prepared. If he didn't return to the Heavenly Een Mountains in 3 days, the Black Moon sect would contact us for help. Then how many days have passed? We've lost contact for around 5 days. 5 days? What is going on? Meng Qingwu knit her brows and her expression became a bit serious as she said with a face of worry, "From the situation from that side, Yoda's group seemed to have just left the Heavenly Een Mountains when they were attacked and chased. The Heavenly Een sect has been surrounded by the 5 large sects, and this battle has lasted for several days. Our side is also in turmoil, so the news has been delayed. Did something happen to them? I don't think so. At least they have the ability to escape with the transport scroll, so they must have been trapped for some reason. However, it is very strange. Yoda is a spirit transformation expert. There shouldn't be an expert that can suppress him in the Great Zhou country." Chu Tian thought about it for a few seconds. This matter is very strange. Have Nangong quickly gather some people. I want to personally take a look. Miracle City's matters had been very complicated recently. Not only did they have to monitor the 3 large powers, they also had to speed up their cooperation with the elves. However, they had to take a look at the Great Zhou country, so Chu Tian could only leave this matter to Meng Qingwu. Luckily Meng Qingwu was very efficient and there were more and more smart brains in the city, so there shouldn't be any problems. When Nangong Yun heard that there was going to be a fight, she immediately called several dozen people over. These people were all experts in the 3rd true spirit layer and were all peak experts in Miracle City. Chu Tian found the little fox that was stealing food in the garden and they didn't say anything as they teleported to the Great Zhou country. Endless Een saw Chu Tian's group arrive and he quickly excitedly came forward. "Why are you only here now? The sect master has been missing for an entire 5 days. The Heavenly Een Mountain has been surrounded for 5 days and we won't be able to hold on if this continues." I'm sorry. Chu Tian could only wave his hand. Miracle City has also met a bit of trouble. Haven't they just calmed down? Een Spirit will be fine. Just tell me the situation first. Chu Tian looked around and found that the Heavenly Een Mountain had changed quite a bit. There were holes in the surrounding mountain peaks, and there were many signs of battle on the main peak of the Heavenly Een Mountain. The buildings in front of the mountain gate had all been destroyed and the square was covered in cracks, just like an earthquake. There were some places that were very new, with flames and ashes still floating in the air. Fuck, what happened? Endless Een spoke of the matter with a depressed expression. After the Black Moon sect decided to support the Great Zhou royal family's reconstruction, we were immediately opposed by the other sections. Of course, this was expected. The Black Moon sect could have used their 100-year relationship to pull 1 or 2 of the 5 large sects to support us, using this kind of deadlock to prevent a battle from happening. Then how did it become like this? We don't know what happened. The deadlock was good and your Miracle City's Prophet Yoda found the ruins. When they left the Heavenly Een Mountain to explore the ruins, there were no signs at all. Endless Yin's face was very ugly. The 5 large sects worked together to attack the Heavenly Een Mountain. If it wasn't for the Heavenly Een Mountain's protective array, perhaps this place would have been blown to pieces. It was beaten to this state in just a few days? Nangong Yun had a look of disdain. What about the 10,000-year-old protective array of your heavenly Een mountain? Is that thing made of paper? Don't speak nonsense. The show has already started filming and will be broadcast on the TV in the future. The movie is also being prepared. Everyone think about it, the name you gave yourself will appear on the big screen, wouldn't that be a great thing? Hey, this opportunity can't be missed, it won't come again. Because the new book was about the apocalypse, the requirements for the main character's name were as follows. 1. Don't use Western names. 2. Don't be too flashy. 3. It's best if it's simple, but it's not conventional. Chapter 10:10. After Ling Wanjian was taken care of, the other eagle burial experts weren't a problem. With the 18 divine servants and Vivian working together, they were quickly taken care of. Yoda, are you all right? Chu Tian put away his sword and walked over. Yoda had returned to his small and thin appearance. The green dragon's injuries didn't directly affect his body, but it still injured Yoda's vitality. However, with Chu Tian's methods and Miracle City's power, this bit of injury didn't count for anything. What about the others? The people we brought from Miracle City have all died in battle. Yoda's expression was very serious. Een's spirit is currently heavily injured and Chen Bingyu is in the Ice Palace. The situation isn't very good. What happened? I'll go take a look. Een's spirit was lying in the Ice Palace. She had fought with Ling Wanjian, but her chest was pierced in a single move. Although her cultivation wasn't weak, she didn't have any battle strength left. Chu Tian saw her lying on the ice platform. Although she was in ruins and weak, she wasn't dead yet. He teased her a little heartlessly. I say, little sister Zong, you're the leader of one of the 6 great spiritual mountains. Why are you so weak? Pei, the death servant wasn't completely refined, otherwise how could this one be defeated this easily? Een's spirit's pale face became even paler. She was sitting on the platform without moving, just like an ice doll. This sect master almost lost her life and you're actually taunting me. Calm down. I'll remember your merit this time. Chu Tian could only reveal an embarrassed smile. Why isn't Big Sister Bing here? How is she now? Chen Bingyu isn't here. Come with me. Een's spirit and Yoda led Chu Tian and Vivian into the ancient Ice Palace ruins. The ruins were much larger than they imagined. There were ancient murals sealed in the ice walls, as well as large ice sculptures scattered around the palace. These all showed traces of the ancient people's lives. Chu Tian walked while observing. This is the Chen family's ancestral land? Why would their home be in this damn place? The great Zhou country's legends are not completely correct. Een's spirit said while walking, the Ice Palace is a very ancient inheritance. Its history and background are not inferior to the 6 spiritual mountains, only it has not been known to the world for many years. However, it is different from the 6 spiritual mountains. The Ice Palace inheritance has a very high requirement for the bloodline of the inheritor. Only a group of people with a special bloodline can accept it. Over time, they will form a family. Because of the sudden change in the environment or some other disaster, many people in the Ice Palace died and a small group left the ice field, forming the Chen family. So it was like this. Not only was this the great Zhou Chen family's ancestral land, it was also a very important inheritance. The Chen family went from a normal family to quickly grow in just a few decades, finally becoming a great Zhou royal family that even the 6 great powers feared. A very important reason was because of their deep background. When the Chen family's direct descendants or important people grew up, they would all be sent to the Ice Palace to activate their bloodline and cultivate the supreme cultivation techniques recorded in the Ice Palace, so the great Zhou royal family could develop greatly in a short period of time. City Lord, we're here. Yoda walked to the center of the Ice Palace. This is the core of the Ice Palace and even the entire ice field. Because the energy is too strong, it is very dangerous, so please be prepared. Chu Tian looked up and found that there was a giant palace door in front of him. The incomparably large palace door was made of some kind of ice crystal, with 36 ice dragons coiled around it. Two large and dignified ice statues stood on the left and right like dignified door gods. Just from the aura alone, one could feel a strong sense of intimidation. Open it! Under Chu Tian's orders, Yoda opened the ice-sealed door and a visible stream of energy came out. Although he was already prepared, it was still like millions of ice needles piercing through his body. The blood in his body instantly turned cold, and even his spirit energy stopped flowing. Such strong energy. Even if it was a true spirit cultivator, they would still be injured by the energy radiation if they weren't prepared. At this time, Chu Tian's eyes had already turned white and spatial energy covered his body. This cold stream was very strong, but it wasn't enough to break through the spatial barrier of the void escaping. Rather than forcefully resisting this energy, it was better to use the void escaping to avoid it, saving more energy this way. Vivian walked in first and immediately cried out in surprise, "My God, what kind of place is this?" There was a giant ice cave in the main hall with a thick layer of ice that was over 100 meters deep. It was a light blue color, and the deeper the ice went, the thicker the color, giving off a very clear feeling. This was a very rare 10,000-year-old profound ice crystal that was as hard as a level 3 rare metal. It also contained a very strong ice-attributed energy, so it could be used to make excellent quality equipment. The deeper one went, the higher the quality of the profound ice crystal, so it was definitely an unimaginable treasure. Of course, although the profound ice crystal was precious, the thing that attracted the most attention right now was not these things. There was an energy whirlpool visible to the naked eye in this 100-meter deep ice cave. The blue and white energy was like a liquid that was being stirred up by some kind of power. Ice Spirit Frozen Spring? City Lord is very knowledgeable. This is the Ice Spirit Frozen Spring. Yoda nodded his head and said, "This spring is a natural spiritual item. The Chen family's descendants can use this spring to stimulate their bloodline power." Chen Bingyu actually chose to jump into the spring in order to quickly stimulate her power and increase her cultivation. What? Vivian turned pale with fright. She jumped in. Although it was called a spring, it could not be considered a spring. The Ice Spirit Frozen Spring was a condensed form of energy, and since it was energy, it was very dangerous. Even if a spirit transformation cultivator fell into the Ice Spirit Frozen Spring, their chances of survival would not be higher than a mouse falling into the wrong river. How long has she been in there? It's already been 3 days and 3 nights. Chu Tian said to Vivian, "Your cultivation base is higher than mine. Can you use your spatial energy to cut open space and take her out? The energy in here is too strong." Vivian closed her eyes to sense it, but she helplessly shook her head. "My current cultivation base can't resist this kind of interference, so I can't control space. What should we do?" Everyone fell into deep thought. This was the core of the Death Ice field. The energy here was not something normal people could imagine. Even with Chen Bingyu's special ice-attributed bloodline, it would be hard for her to stay here for this long. Chu Tian walked in front of the ice cave. "Since it's like this, there's no other way. I'll personally go in." "You can't, City Lord. Chen Bingyu has the protection of her bloodline when she enters the ice spring. Sir City Lord does not have the relevant innate talent. With your current cultivation base, I'm afraid your soul will be frozen and you won't be able to live. There's no need to worry." Chu Tian shook his head and said, "With the little fox's help, I can at least escape." Yoda wanted to try and persuade him again. Chu Tian didn't even listen as he jumped in. As he continued to fall, Chu Tian could clearly feel that the cold aura of death was becoming stronger and stronger. It had already broken through the barrier of the void escaping. There was no sound at all. Chu Tian fell into the ice spirit cold spring and there was no strong resistance. After a bit of a buffer, countless streams of terrifying cold energy began to cut Chu Tian's body like ice-cold knives. With this kind of energy, even if he used the Starlight Immortal body, he wouldn't be able to last long. Moreover, Chu Tian's cultivation base was not high. The little fox used its ability and actually created a small barrier. It made the surrounding energy flow change direction and charge at the little fox. Chu Tian was surrounded by starlight as he used his spirit energy to move forward. He was like a diver slowly moving forward underwater. Although he had the little fox's help, it still consumed a lot of energy. Chu Tian calculated that he only had 3 minutes at most. Because his divine sense couldn't spread out, if he used normal methods to search, it was unknown how long it would take. But the little fox gave him a prompt. Chu Tian followed the little fox's direction and saw that at the bottom of the ice spirit cold spring, there was a ball of dazzling white light. This is a ball of flame. Chu Tian's expression slightly changed. This was definitely not a normal flame, rather it was a spiritual flame born from the spiritual vein after tens of thousands of years. This thing was definitely a heaven-defying treasure. The source of the ice spirit cold spring was this ball of flame. Found it. Chen Bingyu floated in front of the flame. It was like she was attracted by a magnet as the flame slowly entered her body. Chen Bingyu was clearly not dead, but she could not move at all. Damn, its possession. Chu Tian found that the spiritual flame contained a strong innate will. It was trying to possess Chen Bingyu and obtain its own flesh and blood body. If the possession was successful, Chen Bingyu's consciousness would completely disappear. In that case, she would be no different from being dead. Chu Tian circulated his elemental energy and was about to swim over, but at this moment, a thick killing intent was suddenly emitted from within the white lotus-like throbbing ice flame. It caused the surrounding ice spirit frozen spring to surge, and several white figures shuttled back and forth. When Chu Tian observed with rapt attention, his heart suddenly sank. Ice flood dragons. Several ice flood dragons. These were several ice flood dragons that were born from the ice spirit cold spring. The entire ice spirit cold spring was born from the mysterious flame, and these ice flood dragons were born from the ice spirit cold spring, so they were controlled by the will of the flame. Each ice flood dragon had a strong power. It was not something Chu Tian could fight against. Not to mention that Chu Tian could not use his power in the depths of the ice spirit cold spring, but these ice flood dragons were like fish in water. How could he fight in this kind of environment? There was no time to think. Several ice flood dragons surrounded Chu Tian at the same time, and one of them charged at him. Chapter 10-11. It was getting late and dusk was approaching. The cultivators of the 5 spiritual mountains were planning a new round of attacks in the camp. The Black Moon Sect's array has clearly weakened after several rounds of attacks, but the Heavenly Een Mountain will recover faster at night, so we have to break through the Black Moon Sect before it gets dark. The Heavenly Sword Sect and Black Tortoise Sect will attack from the front. The Divine Machine Sect will be in charge of restraining the Heavenly Een Mountain's corpse puppets. The Void Spirit Cave will be in charge of breaking the array, and the Medicine King Valley will be in charge of support. What does everyone think? No problem. The Great Zhou Country's 6 great sects, Heavenly Sword Sect, Divine Machine Sect, Black Moon Sect, Black Tortoise Sect, Void Spirit Cave, and Medicine King Valley. Each sect's inheritance was different. The Heavenly Sword Sect was the oldest of the 6 sects, and they were the strongest. All of them were sword cultivators with strong offensive abilities. The Divine Machine Sect specialized in puppet techniques, the Black Moon Sect focused on refining corpses, the Black Tortoise Sect's body forging strength was shocking, the Void Spirit Cave was proficient in arrays and refining, and the Medicine King Valley's alchemy skills were at the peak. With the experts of the 5 sects working together, how could the Black Moon Sect stop them? The Divine Machine Sect's sect master was a person dressed like an iron bucket. Because there wasn't a single inch of skin exposed, it was hard to see his appearance, but from his tall and sturdy figure, he should be a tall and sturdy man. There were dozens of people sitting next to this sect master, and each of them was dressed in the same way. They were all dressed like iron buckets. This person was called Yuan Zhenan. He was only in the 2nd true spirit layer. This was the level of an elder in the other 5 sections. The Divine Machine Sect didn't have many people in the true spirit realm, and their overall cultivation was the weakest of the 6 sects, but the Divine Machine Hall's strength could not be underestimated. For such an important battle, why is your Heavenly Sword Sect's sect master absent? Yuan Zhenan looked at the Heavenly Sword Sect's people and said, "Are these foreign consecrators reliable?" The heavenly sword sect's people were all dressed like sword cultivators. Each person had a treasure sword on their back and were wearing blue or white robes. The one leading them was a middle-aged sword cultivator who was around 40 years old. His eyes were like lightning and his bearing was not ordinary. He was the heavenly sword sect's vice sect master Ling Ying, the Medicine King Valley's valley master Wang Tianyan, the Void Spirit Cave's Gu Lianshan, and the Black Tortoise sect's sect master Jin Kuei. These famous Great Zhou characters were all gathered here at this moment. The Heavenly Sword sect's sect master did not come. Sect Master Yuan doesn't need to worry, we can't all attack the Black Moon sect, who will chase the remnants of the previous dynasty. The sect master has the deepest relationship with the Chen family, so of course we have to personally take care of this matter. The Heavenly Sword sect's vice sect master Ling Ying shook his head and said, as for the Heavenly Sword sect's foreign consecrators, everyone has seen their strength the past few times. If it wasn't for the help of these experts, the Black Moon sect's array wouldn't have been broken so easily. Indeed, each and every one of these foreign experts was very powerful. The Void Spirit Cave's cave master Gu Lianshan was a short old man. At this moment, he was looking at the cloaked figures at Ling Ying's side with a fearful gaze. Your Heavenly Sword sect's strength isn't weak, and you've also found quite a few foreign consecrators these past few years. It seems that your growth is a bit too fast. According to our agreement, after attacking the Black Moon sect, the spoils of war will be divided between our 4 sections. I hope that the Heavenly Sword sect will not break the agreement. Ha! Ling Ying laughed. Cave Master worries too much. The Heavenly Sword sect will abide by the agreement. The Heavenly Sword sect will not take anything from the Black Moon sect. The other sect leaders couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. The Heavenly Sword sect was the head of the Great Zhou country's 6 spiritual mountains, so their strength was already very strong. In recent years, they had been recruiting foreign experts, which made them stronger and stronger, attracting the attention of the other sections. It was good. The Heavenly Sword sect seemed to be tactful. They seemed to know the consequences of growing too fast, so they used the Black Moon sect's inexplicable provocation as an excuse to ally with the other 4 powers to attack the Black Moon sect. They promised to divide the Black Moon sect, and their Heavenly Sword sect wouldn't take anything. They would swallow a large power to strengthen the other 4 powers, restoring the balance of power in the Great Zhou country. They discussed their tactics. The cultivator army prepared to gather. At this time, something unexpected happened. Countless figures appeared in the surrounding basin, and they were led by a group covered in fiery red runes. They charged into the crowd. The exploding corpses opened up a gap and thousands of corpses wildly jumped into the basin. The Black Moon sect had launched a sneak attack. The 5 mountains cultivators clearly didn't expect the Black Moon sect to counterattack, so they were very slow in terms of defense. The Black Moon sect's sneak attack was very cunning, attacking the weakest point of their defense as if they had predicted it, causing them to panic. Yuan Jinnan said with a face filled with shock, "Are the Heavenly Mountain people crazy? They're not using the array and are sending themselves to their deaths? Charge for me. Destroy them." The 5 mountains cultivators reacted, but they didn't have time to counterattack. Several objects with faint white flames appeared in the sky above the basin, quickly flying at the cultivators. What are those things? Who cares? Shoot them down. The Heavenly Sword sect expert's sword flew out. Although the missiles were fast, they couldn't be faster than the swords of a true spirit realm sword cultivator. Several consecutive explosions rang out. Several waves of missiles were shot down in the sky above the basin. Nangong Yun saw this from afar and said in a regretful voice, "Damn, none of them hit." Miracle Commerce's technology was growing day by day. With the detection radar, supercomputers, and powerful energy sources, as well as smart brains controlling them, the missiles had a high chance of hitting targets several hundred miles away. However, the missiles had a very clear flaw because it was a physical weapon that was easy to intercept. True spirit cultivators could break the speed of sound, and their reaction speed was 3-4 times that of sound. Therefore, if they wanted to kill a true spirit expert with a missile, they needed to reach 5 times the speed of sound. The snake-scorpion missile could only reach 1 or 2 times the speed of sound, so it wasn't strange for it to be shot down by a sword cultivator that could use a flying sword. "Don't be anxious," Chu Tian calmly said. "The snake-scorpion missile doesn't rely on explosions to deal with enemies." Around 100 snake-scorpion missile were destroyed in the sky above the basin. Because the basin was in chaos and the cultivators of the 5 mountains were busy dealing with the Black Moon sect's sneak attack, no one noticed that when the missiles were destroyed, a large amount of highly compressed poison was released. These solid poisons quickly liquefied in the high temperature of the explosion and released a strong stream of air. It was transparent and hard to see with the naked eye, but it quickly dispersed, covering the entire basin in just a short while. "Be careful! There's poison!" The cultivators all cried out in alarm. The snake-scorpion beast's poison was a very fast poison, and it was already too late when they found out they were poisoned. Chen Bingyu was almost killed by this poison in Qing state, not to mention that miracle commerce had made it even stronger. The cultivators of the 5 mountains were mainly in the awakened soul realm. How could they resist this kind of biological weapon? It was already too late for these people to react. The entire basin was like wheat being harvested. Batch after batch of poisoned people collapsed. "Quickly, charge out!" The elders of the 5 great sects wanted to escape with their disciples, but the Yin corpses controlled by the Black Moon sect kept on chasing them. With every second that passed, thousands of cultivators lost their battle strength. The entire basin was in chaos, and it was only a matter of time before they were completely wiped out. This is the main battle strength of the great Zhou country? They're really too weak. Nangong Yun thought there would be a large battle, but the result was one-sided from the start. This was a bit too boring. Chu Tian shook his head. The great Zhou country is still a large country, and the 6 spiritual mountains are the pillars of the great Zhou country. I don't think they can't even take a single hit. As if he wanted to confirm this, as soon as he finished speaking, a strange change occurred. Countless black and red figures flew out of the basin like a swarm of locusts. Nangong Yun was shocked. What kind of monster is this? The ones that flew out were all strange-shaped things. Some were as large as elephants and some were very small. Most of them were giant apes, mantises, and other things. Each one of them was covered in light and had large amounts of glowing runes engraved on them. There was a series of ka sounds as a pair of giant wings came out of their backs. This is a mechanical armor made from mechanical techniques. It can fly into the sky, dive into the ground, and dive into the water. There are also various arrays and restrictions engraved on it, so it's no wonder it wasn't affected by the poison mist. Chu Tian rubbed his chin. "Not bad, their mechanical techniques have already surpassed my expectations." This is the ability of Tong Xiaoyu and the others. Nangong Yun was very shocked. There aren't many of them in the Great Summer Country, but the Great Zhou Country has this many. These were the Divine Machine sect's mechanical masters. Although the mechanical technique was a small skill, a mechanical master proficient in mechanical construction was definitely one of the talents that Miracle Commerce lacked the most. Miracle Commerce had already accumulated enough technology. Chu Tian wanted to develop large-scale weapons, airships, and fortresses, so he needed large amounts of mechanical masters. Miracle Commerce was very lacking in mechanical masters. There were only a few hundred of them. How could this be enough? The Divine Machine sect had several 100,000 mechanical masters. If Chu Tian could control the Great Zhou country, he would be able to absorb even more experienced mechanical masters. Miracle Commerce's talents would increase by 10 to 100 times, and their design and manufacturing abilities would increase by a large amount. This also strengthened Chu Tian's determination to take care of the Great Zhou country. After the mechanical masters ignored the poison, the people from the other sects also ran out, with most of them being people from the Medicine King Valley. It should be because the Medicine King Valley was proficient in alchemy, so they had the habit of carrying all kinds of antidotes with them, so they could resist the poison. These people quickly organized themselves to counterattack. How could Chu Tian let them succeed? Prepare the source energy cannons and destructive missiles. I want to see if their turtle shell can block Miracle Commerce's bombardment. The missile launchers were already loaded with missiles. Several dozen source energy cannons were placed in designated positions. With Chu Tian's order, a terrifying bombardment began. Chapter 10-12. The innate life forms in the ice spirit frozen spring were not normal life forms. The ice flood dragon did not have a physical body, so it could fuse with the ice spirit frozen spring. Therefore, it was an undying existence in the ice spirit frozen spring. Not to mention that Chu Tian did not have the strength to fight them. Even if he did, he would not be able to kill them in this kind of environment. The little fox saw that the situation was dire and did not need to be reminded. Its four limbs moved forward and it left Chu Tian's body. It wildly absorbed the surrounding energy while charging at an ice flood dragon. Its mouth was filled with sharp teeth as it bit down on the ice flood dragon's neck. The ice flood dragon's entire body was as clear as crystal, just like a natural work of art. However, there was a glowing energy flowing through its body. This energy was the essence of the ice flood dragon, and the little fox had directly sucked it in with a single bite. The ice flood dragon's body was covered in large amounts of cracks. With a prng sound, the ice flood dragon exploded. The little fox's methods to deal with this kind of life form were very effective. But the ice flood dragon's fragments were wrapped up by the ice spirit frozen spring's energy and then reformed. It was like what Chu Tian had thought. In this kind of environment, these ice flood dragons could not be killed. Fox, tie down a few large snakes. Chu Tian felt that the resistance was getting stronger and stronger. A bone-chilling cold seemed to have penetrated his body and entered his mind, causing his reactions to slow down, and he felt drowsy. This was very bad. The little fox was distracted dealing with the ice flood dragon, and the energy around Chu Tian increased, making it harder for Chu Tian to move forward. He couldn't even last 30 seconds. There was only one method left. Cover me. Chu Tian pulled out the Netherworld sword and the Netherworld ghost flame appeared. He jumped forward and held the sword hilt with both hands as he charged at the white ice flames. The ice flood dragons noticed Chu Tian's plan, and two of them turned around to deal with Chu Tian. The little fox noticed one of the ice flood dragons, but it didn't have time to stop the other one. The energy quickly flew over, and Chu Tian felt a strong sense of danger envelop his body. Like a conditional radiation, Chu Tian released the power of his main source spirit, and his eyes turned the color of space. A spatial energy surrounded his body. The energy in the ice spirit frozen spring was very strong. Chu Tian's cultivation base couldn't even compare to Vivian's. Now that he was in the ice spirit frozen spring, he didn't even have the ability to determine his position. He could only close his eyes and teleport. This kind of action was like closing his eyes and charging into a sea of flames. It was an extremely dangerous action. He couldn't care about that right now. Chu Tian was very clear that with his strength, he couldn't block a single attack from the ice flood dragon. Although there was a large risk in blindly teleporting, wasn't it better than waiting for death? The ice flood dragon released a cold stream, and Chu Tian could clearly feel his blood freeze. Even the starlight immortal body couldn't stop this energy that could freeze everything. When Chu Tian was about to be turned into an ice sculpture, the surrounding energy suddenly repelled him. Chu Tian disappeared from his original position. He missed. The ice flood dragon didn't have the ability to think, but it was still a bit stunned. When it was about to look for a target, the little white fox had already charged over and bit the ice flood dragon's neck. Like it was drinking a drink, it instantly sucked out all the essence in the ice flood dragon's body. The ice sculpture trembled a few times before shattering into countless pieces. Chu Tian had successfully teleported away, avoiding most of the energy, but he had still received a large amount of damage. Now he couldn't resist the corrosion of the ice spirit spring. Perhaps he would be frozen in this damn place in a few seconds. There was still time for him to leave now. Ice spirit flame. Chu Tian's eyes widened, and he was surprised to find that the white flame was just a few feet away, completely parallel to Qin Bingyu's body. The white fireball was constantly changing shape, and large amounts of starry flames were entering Qin Bingyu's 7 orifices. This is bad. At least half of this flame had entered Qin Bingyu's body. This meant that the possession was already half done. The ice spirit flame could condense an innate will, so it was not inferior to the netherworld ghost flame. Not to mention the fact that it could possess someone else's body, this meant that the ice spirit flame's innate will already had complex thoughts and desires, which far surpassed the netherworld flame. Chu Tian didn't think that the netherworld sword could swallow the ice spirit flame. If he rashly attacked, there would be the danger of being swallowed. The current situation was special. The ice spirit flame was halfway through its possession, so it was the easiest time to deal with it. Although the ice spirit flame's possession was very slow, with Chu Tian's current body condition, if he let go of this chance, he wouldn't have the ability to try it again. Netherworld, it's up to you this time. Chu Tian raised his sword and the tip of the sword stabbed into the ice spirit flame. The moment the two touched, there was a very strong will that spread throughout the ice palace. It was rage. This was like a high and mighty queen being forcefully kissed by a beggar on the side of the road. The ice spirit flame was the will of the Eye of Ice that had evolved over tens of thousands of years, finally becoming a high-level existence that surpassed normal life forms. Now that a low-level human was holding a low-level innate spiritual flame, the sword actually released a strong and wild thought of swallowing it. How could it not be angry? This low-level spiritual flame was not something the ice spirit flame placed in its eyes at all. The ice spirit flame had not only been nurtured for tens of thousands of years, its core was the will of the Eye of Ice. Whether it was energy or divine sense, how could this low-level innate spiritual flame compare? Not to mention the fact that the ice spirit frozen spring was its home ground. Wanting to extinguish it wasn't any harder than blowing out a candle. The netherworld flame did not seem to understand. All of its will and all of its power was released through the sword blade. The blue and white netherworld flame exploded and it was like a giant embracing the white sun. This was simply seeking death. Even if the ice spirit flame could only use a small part of its power to resist, this small part was enough to resist because the difference in strength between the two was too large. Not to mention the netherworld flame did not have any home ground advantage here. The cold ice spread across the sword, sealing it in place. The ice spirit flame cut off the connection between the netherworld flame and the netherworld sword, which was equal to cutting off the netherworld ghost flame's path of retreat. With the two flames fighting, only one could survive. From the current situation, the ice spirit flame had an overwhelming advantage. In just a few rounds, the netherworld flame had been weakened by over half. Damn, did I underestimate this fellow? The netherworld flame was slowly pushed back, entering the netherworld sword to recover. In the end, no matter how the netherworld sword tried to enter, it was blocked by the layer of ice on the netherworld sword. The ice spirit flame shot out a beam of light at the netherworld sword. With a gotcha sound, it shattered like ice. The treasure sword broke into 4 or 5 pieces and sank into the bottomless cold pond. This sword that had accompanied Chu Tian for over a year had actually been destroyed here. Losing the sword was a small matter, but the worst thing was that the netherworld flame's foundation had been destroyed. The weapon spirit had lost its support and died. Fuck. Father will fight it out with you. The netherworld flame condensed on the surface of his body. This was a secret technique similar to the flame demon transformation, turning his entire body into a flaming demon. Chu Tian temporarily replaced the netherworld sword as the weapon spirit and the flame. Perhaps like this, there was a chance for him to fight to the death. The ice spirit flame released a taunting intent, taking the initiative to attack. The ice spirit flame charged forward and surrounded Chu Tian. It tried to swallow the netherworld flame's power along with Chu Tian. This was a very easy matter for it. After all, the difference in strength between the two sides was too large and it didn't have any geographical advantage. But when the ice spirit flame covered Chu Tian's body, that dazzling white flame trembled and unexpectedly dimmed. The ice spirit flames began to panic because it had never encountered this kind of thing before. It was not like it was a flame or a living being, but rather a black hole that could swallow everything. The ice spirit flame wanted to escape, but it was shocked to find that it had already been sucked in by the black hole. Chu Tian's hands formed a seal and his body was surrounded by the aura of his main source spirit. His eyes had already turned black, which was not a normal eye color. It was a deep, empty eye that was filled with attraction like a black hole. Chu Tian wildly swallowed the ice spirit flame, weakening its power. The netherworld flame seized this chance to counterattack. The ice spirit flame was ignited. It struggled with all its might, but it was useless. The ice spirit flame was too careless. In this weak state, it actually took the initiative to attack Chu Tian, who it didn't know, so it gave Chu Tian a chance to turn the situation around. Chu Tian did not care about the price as he wildly swallowed it. From spirit to strength, from will to energy, he did not let a single thing go. The ice spirit flame's struggle became weaker and weaker. The netherworld flame chased after it, finally completely igniting the ice spirit flame. The flames seeped out of Chu Tian's body and spread in all directions. The netherworld flame's essence was to burn energy. The ice spirit frozen spring's strong energy was now like a large pool of fuel. The flames quickly spread. Several ice dragons struggled to escape, but they were swallowed by the flames. When Little Fox saw this, she quickly teleported away a few times. Yoda and the others anxiously waited. Vivian suddenly pointed and shouted, "Look, there's light in there." From the beginning to the end of her voice, in just a short breath's time, that little bit of light had already filled the entire ice cave, causing the surrounding ice crystals that were harder than metal to crack. A terrifying energy was released from the center of the ice palace and the entire ice field began to violently tremble. Several hundred miles were affected as all kinds of avalanches appeared at the same time. In a very short period of time, the frozen lake was covered in cracks, and every crack was spewing out blue and white flames. This spectacular scene was simply like a scene from the end of the world. Yoda and the others were stunned. The entire ice lake was destroyed by the flames from the fountain. No one could explain what was going on with this shocking scene. After around 10 minutes, the flames gradually extinguished. The entire ice lake was in a mess and the ice layer was still burning. Vivian anxiously shouted, "Something must have happened. Quickly save Big Brother Chu Tian." Chapter 10:13. Under the control of the AI, the speed, trajectory, and attack positions of more than 10 powerful destructive missiles had all undergone a large amount of precise calculations. As a result, the places they attacked were the weakest, most chaotic, and had the highest hit rate. A few large fire clouds surged, releasing a large amount of light and heat. The terrifying impact of the explosion caused a terrifying killing effect, and also created a shadow that shrouded everyone in panic. From the detection radar, they analyzed the other party's dynamic situation and found a breakthrough point. They immediately deployed a destruction machine gun on the path they had to pass through. Countless energy bullets poured down like a torrential storm and forcefully suppressed them. What kind of weapon was this? It was actually so savage and terrifying. "We can't continue to be trapped here." The Heavenly Sword Sect's vice sect leader Ling Yin used a secret sound transmission technique to shout, "Divine Machine Sect, use the puppet beasts to break out. We and the Black Tortoise Sect will assist you." Alright. The mechanical armor worn by the mechanical masters was only a set of defensive equipment. The ones who were truly fighting were the mechanical puppet beasts in the hands of the mechanical masters. These puppet beasts came in all shapes and sizes. Some resembled large birds, some resembled tigers and leopards. Some flew in the sky, some ran on the ground, and some swam in the water. There was nothing they didn't have, and they all had different functions. Medicine King Valley threw pills to the other sects. This is an antidote pill. It can temporarily resist the poison gas. Everyone attacked together. Hurricane God Shield Talisman. The Spirit Void Cave people took out talismans one after another. This talisman can form a hurricane shield. It can greatly increase one's movement speed. Not only can it defend against the poison gas, it can also resist fierce attacks. The mechanical puppet beasts are about to attack. Advance. Careful, they're launching strange fire arrows again. Heavenly Sword Sect, Sword Formation. Countless treasured swords turned into interweaving streams of light, instantly sweeping away the incoming missiles. The Black Tortoise sect relied on their strong defense and speed to defend the left, right, and back, blocking the Een Corps's harassment and sneak attacks. Although it was very chaotic, the strength of the 5 sects was still displayed. The mechanical beasts and the Black Tortoise sect soldiers stared at the rain of bullets, with tens of thousands of cultivators following behind to form a force to break through. If they broke through the blockade, it would be hard to predict the outcome of this battle. At this moment, Nangong Yun had already prepared over 10 source energy cannons. When she saw the 5 mountain cultivators steadily advancing against the rain of bullets, she immediately raised her hand. Fire! Send them all back for me. The might of the source energy cannons could be imagined. More than a dozen light balls turned into a beam of bright white light, tearing apart and evaporating the hurricane god shield on the puppet beasts' bodies. The various defensive restrictions on the puppet beasts' bodies didn't work as well. At least 100 puppet beasts were blasted into charcoal and broken pieces. This attack did not just destroy the mechanical beasts, the white light also burned everything it touched. As long as it was a flesh and blood body, as long as it had water, it would not be able to withstand this kind of attack. Sweeping away all obstacles. Like a hot knife through butter. Nangong Yun saw that they had successfully blocked the enemy's advance and immediately gave a proud laugh. These fellows aren't that strong. I think they can't even compare to the armies of the 4 great cities. Attack for me, fiercely attack. The 10 source energy cannons opened fire again. The mechanical beast puppets were destroyed again. Yuan Jinan's eyes turned red. These puppet beasts were not easy to make and most of them were left behind by their ancestors. In front of this kind of terrifying attack, they were as weak as paper. Each cannon not only destroyed the puppet beasts, but also the Divine Machine Sect's foundation. He already regretted participating in this battle. Of course, the Medicine King Valley, the Void Spirit Cave, and the Black Tortoise sect were all regretting following the Heavenly Sword sect to attack the Black Moon sect. On one hand, they had heavy firepower and on the other hand, there was a strong poison gas. Now more and more disciples were being poisoned. This was a large loss to the sect. When had the Black Moon sect ever seen such a shocking scene? Chu Tian had brought a few people and a few pieces of equipment, but he was actually able to suppress the cultivators of the 5 mountains. What are you staring at? Chu Tian reprimanded the stunned Endless Een. Our firepower and ammunition have been used up and you're just standing here watching. Are you waiting for them to break through? Only a fool would give up on this kind of good chance. Endless Een came to his senses and shouted, Heavenly Een Mountain's inheritors, it's time to defend the Black Moon sect. Everyone prepare yourselves, charge with me. The Black Moon sect's cultivators came out in full force, showing the spirit of beating a drowning dog. 5 against 1 did have an overwhelming advantage, but the 5 spiritual mountains couldn't come out in full force. When their attack was stopped and their morale fell, they would have thoughts of retreating. The Black Moon sect could not retreat and could only fight with their backs against the wall. Great Heavenly Een Array. Open! The Heavenly Een Mountain's protective array was opened. Tens of thousands of cultivators poured out like a tide. Each person was covered in the glow of cultivation techniques and spirit energy, as well as various secret techniques. This was a clear contrast to the chaotic cultivators of the 5 mountains. The Black Moon sect had around 200,000 cultivators. The 5 mountains had around 400,000 cultivators. There was a large disparity in numbers, but there was a clear difference in their fighting spirit. When the Black Moon sect came out in full force to fight to the death, the cultivators of the 5 mountains began to feel fear. There were some people who couldn't help wanting to retreat. Don't panic! Ling Ying quickly shouted. They are seeking death by opening their sect. This is a good chance to destroy the Black Moon sect in one fell swoop. We have more people and more experts than them. What is there to be afraid of? Charge with me. Although he said this, would it be that easy? The cultivators of the 5 mountains were poisoned, injured, and running away. The entire situation was very chaotic. The Black Moon sect cultivators were coming with ferocious momentum and there was no time to put up an effective defense. The black tortoise sect's Jean Kuei had a fierce expression. This will result in both sides suffering heavy losses. We can't fight anymore. No, it's too late to retreat now, we still have a chance. Ling Ying thought of something. The Heavenly Een Mountain's restrictions have all been removed, we will destroy the strange weapons if we go around them. Without the support of these weapons, we might have a chance of winning. They all looked at each other. All right. They could only do this. They had to risk it. Chu Tian was observing the situation in the Heavenly Een Mountain, but Smart Brain sent out a warning. City Lord, there are many high-intensity signals approaching you. Do you plan on dodging or blocking them? I didn't go find them and they came to me instead. Chu Tian laughed. No need, let them come. Several dozen demon beasts appeared in the center of the valley, all of them being powerful level 3 flying demon beasts. Each demon beast was carrying several cloaked figures, as well as the leaders of the 5 great sections. They went around the battlefield and headed for the Heavenly Een Mountain, heading for Chu Tian's position. They were all true spirit realm experts? Even if these true experts were in the poison mist, they could still resist the poison, so most of them were fine. Rats, quickly die! Ling Ying stood on the back of a golden eagle and charged at the very front. From a distance of several hundred meters, he thrust out a giant sword light. If one looked closely, they would find that this sword was formed from tens of thousands of swords. In the end, it became a giant sword that was several tens of meters long, and it flew towards Chu Tian's position with a destructive force. Such strong sword chi. The Great Zhou's #1 sword cultivator sect really does have some skills. Nangong Yun stepped off the ground and soared into the air, not dodging at all as he sent a fist at the same time. A fire phoenix came out of his burning body and slammed into the giant sword. The two powers collided and shattered at the same time, but countless small sword chi pierced through the flames and fell onto Nangong Yun's body like rain. Although Nangong Yun was pushed back, it didn't cause any injuries. Ling Ying said with a cold smile, "You aren't from the Great Zhou country, why do you care about the Great Zhou country? I'm afraid that whatever Great Zhou princess was also created by you guys." Chu Tian calmly gave a few laughs. Even if we rope in the Black Moon sect to support the Great Zhou country, it's still better than the Heavenly Sword sect colluding with the Eagle Burial Kingdom to divide the Great Zhou country. What did you say? Yuan Jinan and the other elders and cultivators of the sect were shocked. If my guess isn't wrong. Chu Tian's eyes swept over the cloaked consecrators of the Heavenly Sword sect. These are all generals of the Eagle Burial Kingdom. I think the Heavenly Sword sect has already been bribed and have become spies for the Eagle Burial Kingdom. You have been kept in the dark without knowing anything, perhaps you will regret it when your country perishes. It would be better to be like the Black Moon sect and cooperate with my miracle city to prosper together. The foreign consecrators that the Heavenly Sword sect found were people from the Eagle Burial Kingdom? The Eagle Burial Kingdom was one of the largest powers in the area and they were ambitious to expand. If the Eagle Burial Kingdom's influence entered the Great Zhou country, the situation would be very complicated. Yuan Jinan's voice filled with doubt and anger came from the mechanical armor. Ling Ying, is this true? How do you explain this? Don't speak nonsense. Ling Ying's face turned livid. Look at them, not only is this person's weapon strange, his subordinates are all from different races, most likely from the Forest of Chaos. This is the so-called not of our race, but of different hearts. You can't be fooled. These cloaked people controlled their demon beasts and several dozen fierce demon beasts attacked. Chu Tian was surrounded by experts from the forest, but he was lacking in numbers. If both sides fought, he would suffer a loss. The little fox wagged its tail as it jumped out. Its body began to change shape, turning into a giant demonic fox. The Eagle Burial Kingdom's people were shocked to find that these shocking demon beasts had suddenly lost control at this moment. The little fox's power had easily seeped into these demon beasts. It had grown a lot in this period of time, and although it couldn't control several dozen powerful demon beasts at once, it was enough to make these demon beasts lose their minds and go wild. Roar! When the demon beasts went wild, they began to attack each other. Ling Ying's group had no choice but to give up their mounts and jump down to the ground. Don't leave a single one alive. Kill. Ling Ying slashed out with his sword as he spoke. Chu Tian pulled out the burning netherworld sword and turned into a streak of flame to meet it. The two swords clashed in the air and instantly cancelled out all the energy. Chapter 10:14. Chu Tian vaguely remembered that after the netherworld ghost flame swallowed the ice spirit flame, it ignited the entire ice vein with the ice eye as the center. Large amounts of energy surged out and instantly covered the world, completely submerging Chu Tian. Damn, father's luck isn't bad I didn't die. Chu Tian woke up to find that his limbs were fine and he was lying in a cave in the heavenly Yin Mountains. He thought it would be a small matter, but he never thought that he would be in such a dangerous situation. Now that he thought about it, Chu Tian was covered in cold sweat from the risk he took. Something's wrong. Chu Tian recovered his consciousness and found that there were many things that weren't right. The first thing he found was that the entire world was different from before. Everything in the world was clearer, the elements collided with each other, the flow of energy and matter in the air, every small change could not escape Chu Tian's eyes. Chu Tian could even see the shape of every speck of dust that floated past him, and he could even feel the hairs on an ant in the corner of the ant nest. His divine sense was several times stronger than before. That's right. Chu Tian remembered that in the most dangerous moment, he had activated the swallowing power of his main source spirit and began a life and death battle with the ice spring's divine sense, finally successfully defeating the mysterious ice spirit flame. The netherworld flame had defeated the strong and refined the ice spirit flame. Not only did it give Chu Tian its essence, Chu Tian had also absorbed the divine sense that had been nurtured in the ice eye for over 100,000 years. This was an incomparably large amount of wealth. Chu Tian's divine sense had a large breakthrough and now he had completely surpassed the mind's lamp realm, reaching the higher, vision domain realm. Although divine sense cultivation and cultivation base weren't completely unrelated, there was a large independent relationship between them. Divine sense was the power to excavate a living being's soul and spiritual source. Spirit energy was the power to absorb the spiritual energy of all living beings in the world. The former excavated one's root and the latter borrowed things to mend the heavens. Who was stronger and who was weaker, it couldn't be compared. But before one's divine sense reached a certain level, the range it could be used in was very limited. In comparison, increasing one's spirit energy could directly increase one's cultivation base. Not only could it increase one's strength, it could also extend one's lifespan, so the effects were much better. Cultivating divine sense was very difficult. Other than needing fortuitous encounters, it also needed one's own comprehension and the relevant qualities. This kind of strenuous and unrewarding cultivation made it difficult for cultivators. Although divine sense had a high value in assisting one's cultivation and fighting, it still couldn't compare to direct strength. A truly qualified cultivator couldn't just purely pursue strength. Chu Tian knew that just having strength wouldn't allow one to surpass the limit realm. This was also the reason why Chu Tian had always focused on developing his divine sense. Only if he wanted to increase his divine sense, not only did he need to have the relevant abilities, he also needed a fortuitous encounter like this. A fortuitous encounter could only be found and not sought. Just this reward alone made the risk worth it. Chu Tian's impression was that he was heavily injured and he would need to rest for at least half a month if he didn't die. Now he didn't have any injuries and his spirit energy had increased by a large amount. His cultivation had increased by 2 stages, going from the peak 2nd true spirit layer to the peak 3rd true spirit layer. If it wasn't for the bottleneck between the peak 3rd true spirit layer and the 4th true spirit layer, he would have already reached the 4th true spirit layer with the large amount of energy he had gathered. What was going on? Why did he increase this quickly? This was most likely the increase brought by the netherworld flame refining the ice spiritual flame. The biggest regret was that the sword had been destroyed in the fight and now it had fallen into the depths of the ice hole. Without the netherworld sword's help, his battle strength would be greatly reduced. Wait a minute. Without the sword, what about the flame? The value of a sword wasn't high. The most precious thing was the netherworld ghost flame. Chu Tian carefully inspected his body and was surprised to find that in his dantian and meridians, the flame and spirit energy were perfectly combined. This flame aura was very familiar. It was the netherworld flame attached to the netherworld sword. The netherworld flame had swallowed half of the ice spiritual flame and its quality had increased. Now it had already evolved several levels. It couldn't be compared to before. Chu Tian's right hand exploded with an explosion as blue and white flames appeared, moving through his fingertips. Although it had swallowed the ice spirit flame, the netherworld flame was still dominant. The two did not fuse together, rather one swallowed the other. The loser became nutrients for the winner's progress. He didn't have a fire source spirit or an ice source spirit. Why could he directly merge the flame into his spirit energy? This was a very strange and mysterious matter, but he didn't feel any discomfort. On the contrary, his strength had increased by a large amount. Netherworld, how is your current situation? I swallowed the ice spiritual flame and obtained an unprecedented evolution, so I can leave the netherworld sword and fuse with Master's spirit energy, becoming a part of Master's strength. Good. Very good. Even if Chu Tian didn't use his source spirit, his spirit energy was already very strong. The most important thing was that Netherworld had undergone a large evolution, becoming an artificial intelligence. Its relationship with Chu Tian was like a master and servant contract. This was different from the little fox and Chu Tian's relationship. Chu Tian was the little fox's master. If the little fox died, Chu Tian wouldn't die. Once Chu Tian died, it would be hard for the little fox to live. However, the little fox's personality was a bit strong. The contract only restricted the little fox's life, but it did not restrict the little fox's thoughts. Netherworld was a spiritual life, completely under Chu Tian's control. Therefore, Netherworld's personality was very strong. He didn't have a personality like the little fox, but he was an absolutely loyal and reliable talisman. Netherworld was already a top-level artificial intelligence. If he could create a super source energy matrix to strengthen it, wouldn't Chu Tian have a super smart brain implanted in him? This would have a large amount of benefits and convenience, so Chu Tian decided to give it a try when he returned. Big brother Chu Tian, you've finally woken up. Vivian felt movement and immediately charged in. You really worried us to death. How long have I been unconscious for? What happened in between? Big brother, you still don't know? Vivian's face was filled with worship as she spoke in an exaggerated tone. You burn the entire ice field's spiritual vein and large amounts of spiritual energy were released from the fire, giving us quite a bit of benefits. Even my cultivation has increased by quite a bit and Een spirit is about to reach the 5th true spirit layer. The death ice field's spiritual vein has been burning all this time, releasing spiritual energy that surpasses the 6 spiritual mountains. The ice field will soon become a new paradise not inferior to the 6 spiritual mountains. This completely surpassed Chu Tian's expectations. Chu Tian did not know how this happened, but it was not important. He quickly asked, what is Big Sister Bing's situation like? Big Sister Bing has already woken up, but she can't move right now. Come, let's go take a look. Chen Bingyu was sitting cross-legged in the cave. Her silver-white hair flowed down like a waterfall, dancing without any wind. Her mature body was actually covered in white flames, but what was strange was that these flames did not harm her at all. Chen Bingyu's gain from this disaster was no less than Chu Tian's. The ice spirit flame's possession was interrupted halfway. Half of the ice spirit flame had been refined by Chu Tian and the other half had entered Chen Bingyu's body. The ice eyes will even took the initiative to change it, allowing the powerful energy to adapt to Chen Bingyu's body. Following that, the ice and fire were taken care of by Chu Tian and this energy was naturally taken by Chen Bingyu. The ice spirit fire's target of possession was not just anyone. This had to be established on the premise that they had the relevant bloodline. Chu Tian and Chen Bingyu each took half of the ice spirit flame. Chu Tian refined it with the netherworld flame and the netherworld flame refined the ice spirit flame, absorbing its essence to evolve. Chen Bingyu directly turned the ice spirit flame into her own energy. The two sounded the same, but there was an essential difference. In short, Chen Bingyu's increase this time was very large. She was currently in the 5th or 6th true spirit layer, so there was still room for her to increase. Moreover, Chen Bingyu had merged with the ice and fire, so her battle strength was even stronger than before. Sorry. Chen Bingyu saw Chu Tian come to visit. Seeing that nothing had happened to this fellow, Chen Bingyu was a bit relieved. The consciousness in the ice spring is too strong. I wasn't prepared and was bewitched for a moment, so I did such a dangerous thing. I almost dragged you down with me. Don't say it like that, I'm fine right now. Chu Tian really didn't suffer any losses. He gave a few laughs without a care in the world. You just need to rest here and we'll stabilize the situation. Then you can smoothly become the great Zhou Queen. Chen Bingyu shook her head with a bitter smile. What queen? She wasn't interested. If Chu Tian wanted to control the great Zhou country, he needed a direct power. Chen Bingyu had already obtained the strongest inheritance of the great Zhou royal family's ruins, so her future was limitless. As long as he spread the news, it was unknown how many people would come to join him. The position of great Zhou queen, Chen Bingyu couldn't run away. Chu Tian was prepared to build the imperial city near the ice field. With the large amount of spiritual energy in the ice field, it would be able to create a large power. The great Zhou royal family had miracle commerce's support, so their influence would be even larger than the 6 spiritual mountains. This way they could firmly grasp the great Zhou country. Boss, I'm back. Nangong Yun brought people back at this time. Good news, Yuan Zhenan, Jin Kuei, and the others have submitted. They are now willing to cooperate with miracle commerce as long as it doesn't destroy their current benefits. Submitted? This was also expected. Chu Tian nodded and said, now that the general trend cannot be stopped, we will unite the large sects and the small and medium-sized powers of the great Zhou country. In the name of protecting the country, we will launch a crusade against the Heavenly Sword Mountain. This time we must pull out this thorn and also kill the chicken to warn the monkeys, shocking all the great Zhou sects. Alright. Nangong Yun was filled with confidence. The Heavenly Sword Mountain's leaders are all dead. It will be easy for us to eliminate them. Chapter 10:15. The Great Zhou's number 1 sect's vice sect master Ling Ying was in the 4th true spirit layer. He was only a bit weaker than Yin spirit. The Heavenly Sword sect was a sword sect that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years in the great Zhou country, so whether it was cultivation techniques or secret techniques, they could be taken out even on the continent. How could this kind of person be easy to deal with? Ling Ying cultivated an orthodox imperial sword technique. The central state genius Chu Xinghe in the past also inherited a similar imperial sword technique, but the Heavenly Sword sect's inheritance was stronger and didn't stick to the form. There were more variations, so naturally it was stronger. Ever since Chu Tian left Great Summer, he hadn't had a good fight. Ling Ying used a sword and Chu Tian also used a sword. Where could he find such a good chance? With a flick of Ling Ying's wrist, there was a flash of sword light and several dozen swords were shot out. Each one was condensed from strong sword chi and they attacked Chu Tian in a very nimble and crafty way. So fast. Chu Tian's body flashed with flames as he used the netherworld flickering flame to retreat. The several dozen swords all missed and turned into a single large sword that slashed into the air. Chu Tian couldn't hide anymore, so he had no choice but to reveal himself. He raised his sword with both hands to block it. The ground around him began to crack. That ancient and fierce sword pressure came crashing down, almost slamming Chu Tian into the ground. Sword! Chu Tian gave a low roar and the demon god's sword flew into the sky. The sword aura increased by 10 times, barely blocking Ling Ying's casual slash. When the sword glow was blocked, it shattered and turned into countless intersecting sword chi that surrounded Chu Tian like a giant net. This was a net made of sword chi? Ling Ying's hands came together and the sword net suddenly shrank. This was enough to grind Diamond to pieces. Chu Tian had the Starlight Immortal Body's protection, so even if it could grind Diamond to pieces, it couldn't cut a single hair on his body. However, this sword chi net was like a real net, actually binding Chu Tian's body to the point where he couldn't move. Chu Tian felt like he was being tied up by the intersecting white lights, and no matter how much strength he used, he couldn't break free in a short period of time. The netherworld ghost flame could burn all kinds of energy. Although he managed to ignite the sword chi, the burning speed was very slow. You dare challenge the heavenly sword sect's sword art with this little skill? I don't have time to play with you, go die. Ling Ying revealed a look of disdain. His right hand quickly withdrew his sword and his left hand formed a sword finger, small phaseless sword finger. His fingernail flicked out. Chu Tian's body suddenly erupted with sword chi. Even with the strong Starlight Immortal Body's defense, under this attack, it still dimmed a bit. Chu Tian was sent flying by the violent energy and he fell to the ground. Ling Ying's pupils slightly shrank. Why didn't he die? What kind of peerless defense technique was this? It could even block the small phaseless sword. The netherworld ghost flame exploded, instantly burning away the sword chi around him. Chu Tian stood in the raging flames and his body had already become a fist bigger. The flames covered his body like armor, making him look like a flaming demon at first glance. Good sword art, it's a pity you haven't practiced it enough. The heavenly sword sect's supreme small phaseless sword is not something an ant like you can learn? Although I haven't reached the large success realm like the sect head's senior brother, it's more than enough to kill a small character like you. Then give it a try. Chu Tian's figure turned into 6 and he immediately used his strongest sword move. First eat my move, Netherworld Clone Slash. Small phaseless sword finger. Ling Ying attacked with a flick of his finger, but there was no trace of it. Chu Tian's clones were hit by the sword chi at the same time and 5 of them were destroyed on the spot. The main body was sent flying and fell to the ground. He staggered back several steps and even the flame demon transformation was broken. So strong. He had never seen such a strange sword art before. Small phaseless sword, colorless, formless, impossible to catch. It was like its name. Ling Ying's sword art looked very simple, but it consumed a lot of spirit energy. He was in a hurry to kill Chu Tian, so he didn't hesitate to use the phaseless sword twice. Who would have thought that the heavenly sword sect's unstoppable secret technique would not be able to injure this young brat? The small phaseless sword was an unparalleled secret technique. Not to mention that Ling Ying's cultivation was far above Chu Tian's. If this matter was spread, no one would believe it. Chu Tian's heart was secretly shocked. This was his first time encountering a cultivation technique he couldn't see through. The small phaseless sword did not have a trace of it and each time it was used, it would directly hit its target. Ling Ying's empty sword finger against a normal person would definitely explode their body from the inside out. Because the Starlight Immortal Body had reached the perfection realm, its defensive abilities had already penetrated into his flesh and blood, penetrating into every cell, so he could block the empty sword finger. Otherwise, no matter how high the defensive secret technique was, it wouldn't be able to block this strange colorless attack. Chu Tian had underestimated the Great Zhou country and this era too much. Small phaseless sword slash. Ling Ying's spirit energy filled his body and a sword source spirit appeared on the surface of his body, releasing a strong sword intent. With a flick of his wrist, the sword tip flew out from the ground. He still couldn't see the trajectory at all. Danger. Chu Tian instinctively felt danger and quickly strengthened his defenses. Sure enough, a formless and invisible sword glow pierced him and the invisible sword chi scattered the Starlight Immortal Body's power. Chu Tian staggered back a few steps and blood leaked from the corner of his mouth. Even with the Starlight Immortal Body, he was still injured. You still want to fight? Ling Ying's forehead was covered in sweat, but his aura had reached its peak. He pointed his sword at Chu Tian. You can't even dodge my sword, you can't even get close to me, how are you going to fight me? Hey, stop bluffing. Chu Tian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. If you could easily kill me, why would you waste your breath? You just want to buy some time to recover. Can this sword art really take my life in your hands? Ling Ying's eyes filled with rage as if he had been greatly insulted. Chu Tian continued to say, "This sword art being buried in the Heavenly Sword Mountain is too much of a waste. How about I dig it out and personally practice it? It'll be good for it, don't you think?" Ling Ying raised his sword and once again gathered all the spirit energy in his body. Just as he was about to execute another mysterious sword technique, he suddenly noticed a flash of light in Chu Tian's eyes. Ling Ying suddenly felt a strong sense of danger approaching. Before he could react, the surrounding ground suddenly split open. 18 dark golden figures charged out. These were the 18 divine servants. The 18 divine servants had been strengthened and each one had reached the third true spirit layer. Now that they attacked unexpectedly, there was a chance they could kill the others. Small phaseless sword slash. Ling Ying's reaction was very fast as he slashed at 19 targets. The small phaseless sword was not a single target sword art. This sword art was ever-changing and formless, so it wasn't strange for it to attack many targets at once. Only, the more targets it attacked, the weaker the sword move became. The 18 divine servants were sent flying. Chu Tian was not injured at all by this slash. He had been waiting for this chance for a long time. Chu Tian flew out and a streak of sword chi instantly swept across Ling Ying like a rainbow, splitting his body in half. Ling Ying struggled a few times before revealing an unwilling expression. Whether it was cultivation or cultivation technique, he surpassed this person, so why did he lose? Chu Tian held his chest and took 2 breaths. Green light came from his fingers as he slowly healed his injuries. He didn't use his main source spirit in this battle not just to be low-key, but also because he felt this kind of troublesome opponent. He hadn't met one in a long, long time, so fighting this battle had quite a bit of effect on his martial arts heart. Nangong Yun was fighting the Black Tortoise sect master Jin Kuei. The great Zhou country was still a large country. Just like the Heavenly Sword sect's Ling Ying, the other sect masters were not normal people. Nangong Yun's cultivation was a bit higher than Chu Tian's and his source spirit cultivation technique was at the peak. If he didn't use his main source spirit, Nangong Yun's battle strength was much higher than Chu Tian's, but he could only fight to a draw with Jin Kuei. The other 3 sect masters' battle strength was not simple either. The little fox controlled several demon beasts to tie down the Eagle Burial Kingdom generals. Looking at the overall situation, Chu Tian's side was at a disadvantage. The forest experts from Miracle City were clearly a bit weaker than them. Go! The 18 divine servants attacked the leaders of the mountain sections. The 18 divine servants were all in the third true spirit layer. Not only were they in the third true spirit layer, they were all very hard to deal with, not something these fellows could easily deal with. Nangong Yun instantly felt the pressure decrease. Chu Tian raised his sword and charged at the Eagle Burial Kingdom generals. The sword glow cut open the cloak of a mysterious person and the spirit beast revealed its true appearance. Open your eyes wide and look. These are the helpers the Heavenly Sword sect has found. Chu Tian's sword moved faster and faster. Several spirit beasts were cut down by his sword. The Medicine King Valley, Divine Machine Hall, Void Spirit Cave, and Black Tortoise sect all had different expressions. If it was just a few spirit beasts, it wouldn't be strange. Now that they found out that these mysterious people were all spirit beasts, from their clothes and totems, they were all the same. It was impossible for the Heavenly Sword sect to recruit so many people. This was simply a troop that had been placed in the Heavenly Sword sect. Do you see this? Chu Tian shouted as he killed. The Heavenly Sword sect is the true scourge of the great Zhou country. If you continue to help them, even if the Black Moon sect is destroyed, do you think you can escape? The great Zhou country will become the Eagle Burial Kingdom's pasture sooner or later. Have your people put down their weapons? I promise I won't kill them. Don't believe him. A spirit beast roared out in a hoarse voice. They are people from the Forest of Chaos. The Black Moon sect has already colluded with the Forest of Chaos, so their motives aren't pure. They are just trying to confuse us now. Chu Tian gave a cold snort, seeking death. Spatial movement. Chu Tian raised the flaming sword and directly cut this person in half. The others were shocked when they saw this. This young man didn't even use his full strength when he fought Ling Ying. At this time, a wolf race expert wildly slashed out with his dual blades. Chu Tian's burning netherworld sword charged forward, completely ignoring the attacks. The sword in his hand was like a graceful bird as it flew forward. The wolf race expert was shocked to find that the saber glow was easily bounced off Chu Tian's body. It was like a drop of water hitting a boulder. It didn't cause the slightest bit of damage. The other side's sword glows came closer and closer. Ah! The wolf race expert gave a pitiful cry. Chu Tian's sword was like a rainbow as it pierced through the illusory blade glows, instantly piercing through his chest from the ground to the sky. The netherworld ghost flame wildly surged out, turning his body into countless black pieces that fell to the ground. If you stubbornly resist. Chu Tian stabilized himself and raised his sword, his killing intense sword. That will be the result of all of you. The expressions of the sect leaders all fell. Go! Wanna run? Chu Tian instantly slashed out at Yuan Zhenan's mechanical armor. With a crackling sound, he was forced back to his original position. I'm afraid you won't be able to run. The 18 divine servants, Chu Tian, and Nangong Yun. The 20 of them were attacking together. The entire battle lasted for less than 3 minutes. These sect leaders, the people with the highest status in Great Zhou, were all heavily injured by Chu Tian. They were lying on the ground like dead dogs, unable to move. You're crazy, why don't you keep being crazy? Nangong Yun kicked Jin Kuei a few times. If you have the guts, stand up and fight another 300 rounds with this old lady. Nangong, that's enough. Tie them up immediately. Yes, boss. Chapter 1016. In less than half a month, the Great Zhou country had undergone a series of dramatic reversals. First, the Heavenly Sword sect gathered the other 4 sects to attack the Black Moon sect, but after a few days, they were mysteriously defeated. The Heavenly Sword sect's sect Master Ling Wanjian and Vice sect Master Ling Ying were killed one after another. The alliance formed by the 5 spiritual mountains collapsed and 200,000-300,000 people were captured by the Black Moon sect. When everyone was stunned, the Divine Machine sect, the Medicine King Valley, the Void Spirit Cave, and the Black Tortoise sect suddenly announced that the Heavenly Sword sect had colluded with the Eagle Burial Kingdom to cause a civil war in the Great Zhou country, so they were going to join forces with the Black Moon sect to attack the Heavenly Sword sect. This change was just too strange. Even if one's thoughts jumped, perhaps they couldn't withstand this dramatic change, right? A few days ago, the sects that were locked in a fierce battle had actually formed an army in less than a week's time. Together, they used the banners of eradicating evil, protecting the Great Zhou dynasty, and re-establishing the royal family, and so on. They incited a large number of forces, big and small, and threw the entire Great Zhou dynasty into chaos. From there, they started a grand battle to encircle and annihilate Heavenly Sword Mountain. Was it easy to break through the head of the 6 spiritual mountains, the Heavenly Sword Mountain? The Heavenly Sword sect was like a group of dragons without a leader. When the Black Moon sect led the 5 spiritual mountains to gather at the foot of the Heavenly Sword Mountain, the entire Heavenly Sword Mountain fell into chaos. The battle hadn't even begun and they were already in chaos. Yin Spirit came in front of Chu Tian. We can attack now. No rush, no rush. Chu Tian revealed a faint smile as he looked over the people of the 4 sections. Although he believed in the young Miss and Dolores' persuasion skills, the sect masters changed their attitudes this quickly. This was something Chu Tian never expected. We have a 100% chance of winning this battle. We don't need to pursue a quick victory, we need to pursue a complete victory. The City Lord is right, the City Lord is right. The sect masters of the large sects all nodded. The so-called a wise man submits to circumstances. After personally visiting Miracle City, they couldn't be stubborn even if they wanted to. Miracle City's technology, Miracle City's potential, and Miracle City's experts, especially the Elven and Treant experts, they were all filled with fear. Perhaps any one of them could sweep through the Great Zhou country's sect masters. With Miracle City's powerful background and technology, why would they covet the Great Zhou country? It was like what Chu Tian said, the Great Zhou country was just a small part of Miracle City's territory. Miracle City did not need to completely control the Great Zhou country. These Great Zhou country sects would take advantage of Miracle City's early stages to join them, so they would receive an unimaginably high reward in the future. Meng Yingying ran in front of Chu Tian to report the results of the negotiations. We've talked to the Heavenly Sword Mountain and several stubborn old men are guarding the gate, refusing to surrender. They even said that if we dare take a step forward, they will activate the 10,000 Sword Mountain array and cut us all to pieces. This arrogant? Then they had to be taught a lesson. Chu Tian said to Nangong Yun, who was standing beside him, "How is the weapon deployment?" Nangong Yun confidently replied, "A Heaven's Punishment airship is in place and there are 20 source energy cannons. As long as boss gives the order to attack, we will immediately attack. Since they refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then let them have a taste of our might." Understood. This attack was not only led by the 5 great sects, there was also the support of Miracle Commerce's weapons. So what if the Heavenly Sword Mountain was made of iron? The airship had a wave of bombardment and the 20 source energy cannons had been firing for several hours, as well as powerful destructive missiles. Who would be able to withstand such an attack? The Heavenly Sword Mountain's protective array was famous for its powerful attacks. The 5 great sects had not even launched an attack and the Heavenly Sword Mountain's protective array had already been reduced by half. This did not just reduce the Heavenly Sword Mountain's defenses, it also dealt a large blow to the Heavenly Sword Mountain's morale. The time has come. Full force attack. Miracle Commerce could not maintain their firepower forever. When the bombardment was about done, the 5 great sects finally launched their first wave of attacks. The Heavenly Sword Mountain's defenses were already full of holes, not to mention that there were many experts that came from the forest. After several attacks, the Heavenly Sword Mountain's protective array was finally destroyed. The mountain gate has been broken. The Heavenly Sword Mountain's luck has been exhausted. Immediately put down your weapons and surrender. Those who surrender will not be killed. The Heavenly Sword Sect's elder and sect master have colluded with the Eagle Burial Kingdom, so this is their fate. The Heavenly Sword Sect's disciples do not need to be buried with them. The people of the 5 great sects began to shout out in unison. No one wanted to cause a large slaughter and the Heavenly Sword Sect's normal disciples would not be involved in high-level matters. Not to mention the fact that the Heavenly Sword Sect's cultivators had high battle strength, they would be the backbone of the Eagle Burial Kingdom in the future. If they were consumed in a civil war, it would be too much of a pity. Don't listen to them. A senior sect elder shouted from a high place, "The Heavenly Sword Mountain has been passed down for tens of thousands of years and countless heroes have died. How could it be destroyed at this moment? The mountain exists and the people exist. The mountain dies and the people die. The time to defend the Heavenly Sword Sect has come. Kill these villains that are spreading lies. You're seeking death and you want everyone to die with you? We'll talk after we kill you." Nangong Yun's hands turned into giant flame wings as she flew into the sky, instantly creating a thick cloud of flames as she charged at the other side. The Heavenly Sword Sect elder was clearly not a normal person. He sent out several dozen streams of sword chi that fell onto Nangong Yun like a waterfall. Although it scattered the flames around Nangong Yun, it couldn't harm Nangong Yun's starlight immortal body at all. A trivial third awakened soul layer dares to be this arrogant? Go die. Nangong Yun didn't make any fancy movements. She punched the air and directly smashed the man and his sword into pieces in an extremely violent and clean manner. Who else is there? Nangong Yun killed one of the strongest elders of the Heavenly Sword Sect in a single move. Her figure was like an angry and proud fire phoenix that stood in the air. This kind of disdainful aura and wild strength made people not dare look at her for a while. But at this time, several cloaked figures came out of the crowd. The aura they released was not weaker than the senior elder, and the person leading them even had a cultivation in the 6th true spirit layer. No matter how fierce Nangong Yun was, she still lost in cultivation. Therefore, she was forced back by the other side in a single move. Of course, with the Starlight immortal body and the Nirvana scripture, Nangong Yun's defense and recovery were impeccable, so she was not easy to defeat. Yoda said from below when he saw this, "These should be people from the Eagle Burial Kingdom. If this old man personally reveals their true faces, the Heavenly Sword sect disciples' morale will fall and they will collapse on their own. Why bother Prophet Yoda to make a move for such a small character?" Chu Tian sat in the middle of the crowd, watching the battle like he was watching a play. "I've comprehended a new move, let me try it out." Yoda was a bit stunned. What move was the new move? There were several people in the fifth true spirit layer. Even if Chu Tian's cultivation had increased, could he surpass this high cultivation gap? Not to mention this was not a one-on-one battle. Nangong Yun knew she couldn't beat the other side, but with her fierce personality, even if she knew she couldn't win, she still wouldn't retreat. When Nangong Yun was prepared to launch an even stronger attack, something Nangong Yun never imagined happened. A strange power appeared. It seemed like it could ignore the bindings of space and time as it suddenly descended onto Nangong Yun's body. Nangong Yun's body suddenly trembled as blue and white flames wrapped around him. An incomparably strong power suddenly appeared on his body and Nangong Yun felt his strength increase, becoming at least 5 times or 10 times stronger. This is... Isn't this the boss power? Why did it appear on my body? Chu Tian's voice sounded in his mind. "I've sent netherworld energy into your body, so your current strength won't lose to any of them. Let's fight to our heart's content." "Ha ha ha, oh thank you boss." Nangong Yun could not understand what was happening, but what did it matter? No matter what the boss did, she never thought of understanding it. Nangong Yun could feel the power enveloping her body and she immediately gave a long roar. Heaven-burning fist. The netherworld flame and phoenix flame combined and a storm was released, instantly burning 2 Eagle Burial Kingdom people into ashes. It's actually this strong. Nangong Yun was shocked herself. The moment Nangong Yun was stunned, the Eagle Burial Kingdom expert's leader used a secret technique to charge over and slashed at Nangong Yun with his scimitar. Nangong Yun was sent flying several meters, but she wasn't injured at all. "Why are you so stupid?" Chu Tian's voice sounded in Nangong Yun's mind again. "I'll send you 2 more moves, quickly take care of them." Nangong Yun once again felt power descend upon her body. The Eagle Burial Kingdom expert wanted to pursue her and when he was about to approach this woman, a large amount of netherworld flame condensed on his body, instantly forming the image of a demon. Flame demon transformation. Wasn't this Chu Tian's unique secret technique? While everyone was in a daze, a sword chi appeared in Nangong Yun's right hand. She took a step forward and her body suddenly disappeared. Several dozen dazzling sword glows appeared. It was like an endless wave that tore through the void. Several cloaked people were instantly cut into pieces. The leading expert barely managed to block a few of them, but the netherworld flame sword art was too strong, not to mention Nangong Yun's explosive strength. His protective spirit energy was broken. Nangong Yun stabbed the sword chi into the other side's chest. "You? How is this possible?" The Eagle Burial Kingdom expert revealed a look of disbelief. He couldn't understand even at the moment of his death. Nangong Yun wasn't even at the heaven spirit realm. How could she release this kind of terrifying strength? The people around Chu Tian were all stunned. What was wrong with Nangong Yun today? Was she possessed by Chu Tian? Chu Tian sat in the chair without moving and his golden eyes slowly returned to their original color. He closed his eyes and gently panted, with sweat already covering his temples. It would be strange if you could understand. This vision domain, divine sense, was very rare, not to mention using his main source spirit to strengthen it. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.